Chapter 635. The morning training ended at noon. Everyone's stomachs were already rumbling with hunger. Chu Qingyan knew that starting from the beginning, it was good to give them a show of strength. She couldn't push them too hard, otherwise they would easily rebel. So, Chu Qingyan waved her hand and let them go. Everyone was either limping or clutching their waists as they left in pain. Chu Qingyan thought to herself, it seems like the training is quite effective. But she wouldn't admit that her training was too harsh. A long time ago, she had heard Hualing describe how they were trained under her master's cruel methods. It was simply dark without any light. So, she believed that people who could go through harsh and cruel training wouldn't be so bad. So, Chu Qingyan didn't show any mercy to the Jiangnan fierce cavalry. Because today's soft-heartedness would likely cause them to lose their lives in an instant. Chu Qingyan told Lu Guang and the others about the upcoming training. They happily agreed, just like when they trained her. They had been tortured by their master before. Now that they finally had a chance to torture others, why wouldn't they do it? Looking at the happy green gourd and the others, Chu Qingyan felt that she needed to mourn for the coming days of the Jiangnan fierce cavalry. After giving instructions, Chu Qingyan saw Jin Ling swinging his arm from the corner of her eye and walked towards him. Although Jin Ling was in charge of all the properties under Big Ice Cube, she heard that his martial arts were not inferior to Hualing and the others. So, during the training, she deliberately observed him. No matter what he did, he was very accurate. Little Gongzi, don't worry, you must accept your loss. Jin Ling saw her coming and thought that she was afraid that he wouldn't honor his promise, so he took the initiative to speak. I'm not worried about your character. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but smile. Jin Ling glanced at her and nodded. Actually, I came to thank you. Chu Qingyan put her hands behind her back and looked sincere. Hearing this, Jin Ling was surprised. I don't know where little Gongzi's gratitude comes from. Chu Qingyan smiled. Thank you for not making a move just now. Otherwise, Jin Xen might have lost. Then there wouldn't be this training. Only then did Jin Ling understand what she was talking about. He said casually, Jin Xian's skills are not bad. Among the Xiao cavalry he is not inferior at all. This subordinate did not make a move because I feel that Jiangnan's Xiao cavalry needs to be trained. Especially when he heard what the little princess said when Su Yi and the others were doing push-ups, it really touched him a lot. There was another reason that he did not want to admit. He was the leader of fierce valiant cavalry, yet he actually fought with someone else. How embarrassing would that be if word got out? Master would definitely despise him. Chu Qingyan nodded her head. Following which, she thought of something and pretended to say casually, Jin Ling, if Caretaker Shi and Caretaker Li talk to you today, pay more attention to them. Hearing this, Jin Ling raised her eyebrows. What did the young princess consort mean? However, seeing that she was unwilling to talk about it, Jin Ling could only agree and did not ask further. This afternoon, I will send Xiao to your place. In the future, whether she shines or is submerged, it will all depend on you. Chu Qingyan said with a smile. The corners of Jin Ling's mouth twitched. What the young princess consort said would make him feel pressured. Okay, you can go and do your work. Don't forget to participate in the upcoming training. Chu Qingyan patted him on the shoulder and then left leisurely. Jin Ling sighed helplessly. He could already imagine the chaotic training days that would follow. She did not see Big Ice Cube for the entire morning. Chu Qingyan twisted her neck and walked towards the study room. At this time he must be there. On the way, Chu Qingyan met Yang Xiaohuan. Come. Chu Qingyan waved at her. Yang Xiaohuan saw that her master was like a wolf calling for Little Red Riding Hood. She could not help but shake her shoulders and quickly walked over. Master, do you have any orders? She asked innocently. Xiaohuan, Chu Qingyan called very affectionately. I have already sold you to Jin Ling. Yang Xiaohuan's body trembled and her eyes were filled with disbelief. Chu Qingyan laughed. I was just teasing you. Didn't you say that Jin Ling is very powerful? I will send you to his place. He will take care of you in the future. If you don't understand, you can ask him. Yang Xiaohuan calmed down and her face was filled with joy. Master, you scared this servant, but I am really happy. Thank you, Master. Okay, you can go and do your work. I will eat lunch with His Highness. Chu Qingyan patted her little head. She missed Xining more and more. Young Xiaohuan nodded and then retreated. Chu Qingyan had just walked into the study when she saw the person sitting behind the desk seriously reading the letters. She blinked and then softened her footsteps. She bent over and circled behind him. She suddenly covered his eyes with her hands and asked in a strange voice, "Guess who I am? Who else could it be other than you?" Xiao Su stopped writing and could not help but laugh. When she had stepped into the study, he had already noticed, but he did not want to expose her. "Big Ice Cube, you don't have any feelings at all." Chu Qingyan unwillingly let go of her hands and then circled back to him. She complained to his icy face. "Feelings? What is that? Can it be eaten?" Xiao Su looked at her coldly. Chu Qingyan choked. Big Ice Cube also liked to imitate her. She simply took away the paper and pen in front of him, and then looked at him seriously. "Big Ice Cube, I've severely punished your subordinates today. Are you angry?" Although she had been merciless when dealing with Jiang Nan's Shaolai cavalry, Chu Qingyan was still a little worried when facing Big Ice Cube. After all, those people were all trained by him. Even if they wanted to beat someone up, they still had to look at their master, right? Xiao Su wondered what it was that made her so serious. But seeing that she was so serious, he asked, "What did you train them for?" Hearing this, Chu Qingyan immediately told him what happened this morning. "I punished Su Yi and the others to do 700 push-ups, and then had them fight with Jin Exin, and had them do the horse stance for 4 hours. Xiao Su seriously listened to her in detail, but the expression in his eyes changed little by little. He did not think that Shaolai cavalry would fall so low in Jiangnan. "Am I very cruel like this?" Chu Qingyan came to ask the opinion of this senior trainer. "When I trained them in the past, I was more than 10 times crueler than you. So you can do whatever you want. If you need any help from Hualing and the others, just ask. Those who can enter Shaolai cavalry are not easy to deal with. Use whatever means you have to use. Do whatever you want to do. Don't let yourself be wronged." Xiao Su looked at the little fellow in front of him with a gentle gaze. His tone was comforting. He knew that the people he trained were not soft nails. "Any means is okay?" She rubbed her hands together. He lightly replied. "So Big Ice Cube, are you helping your loved ones and not helping reason?" Chu Qingyan blinked and asked mischievously. Xiao Su seriously thought about it and then said, "I'll help you." Then when his voice fell, Xiao Su saw a certain person's stunned expression and could not help but smile. Chapter 636. During the entire lunch table, Chu Qingyan's mood was floating. That, "I'll help you," was simply domineering. Chu Qingyan felt that with these words, she could eat several bowls of rice. "Don't be silly, eat properly, don't just eat the dishes." Xiao Su raised his hand and knocked on the forehead of the person in front of him. He didn't know what was in her head, but she kept giggling. "Understood." Chu Qingyan immediately adjusted her eating attitude, then casually picked up a piece of meat and put it in her mouth. Xiao Su looked at the ribs that were taken from his bowl and wanted to tell her that he had already taken a bite, but it was too late. What kind of distraction was this, to be able to bypass the table of dishes and turn to his bowl? But Xiao Su also let her be. He couldn't count how many times the dishes in his bowl were taken away, and a certain person unknowingly ate her fill. "Big Ice Cube, let's go out for a walk? Jiangnan is so beautiful. If we always stay in the room, wouldn't it be a waste of spring?" Chu Qingyan put down her bowl, looking fascinated. "Do you think you have time to go out for a walk right now?" Xiao Su asked. Hee, big things are big things, small things are small things. I'm not busy, I don't play. Look at how busy I am, investigating the mole, training, and borrowing money from the restaurant, so you can't cruelly deprive me of the chance to go out and play, you have to compensate me." Chu Qingyan sat next to him, reached out to grab his arm, and shook him vigorously like a naughty child. Yang Xiaohuan was helping to clean up the table. Seeing her master's childish side, she couldn't help but secretly laugh. Only in front of His Highness would her master reveal her true nature. "Do you want me to accompany you or compensate you?" Not seeing her this close for a long time, Xiao Su couldn't help but tease her. I want all of them. Chu Qingyan finally reacted and hugged him tightly, refusing to let go. Then what do you want to play? Anything is fine. Chu Qingyan felt that Jiangnan was full of beautiful scenery, so she could accept anywhere. Then let go. I won't let go. How am I supposed to get up and leave if you don't let me go? When Chu Qingyan heard the low laughter beside her ear, she suddenly understood. She hurriedly let go of her hand and got up. With a face full of excitement, she said, let's go shopping in Jiangnan. Eat good food, enjoy the beautiful scenery, look at beautiful women, and read handsome men. Chu Qingyan blurted out without thinking. She was so pleased with herself that she forgot her place. As soon as she said that, she felt the temperature around her drop by more than 1 or 2 degrees. She turned her head to look at the person beside her. The sky had turned dark. Chu Qingyan's shoulders drooped as she slowly followed behind the black-faced man. Big Ice Cube's mood had become more and more unpredictable recently. It was so scary. Yang Xiaohuan covered her mouth. It was really funny that her master was following behind his highness like a little wife. Chu Qingyan caught a glimpse of Yang Xiaohuan snickering and immediately glared at her. Hurry up and report to Jin Ling, study hard. If you embarrass me, I'll punish you when I come back. Yang Xiaohuan stuck out her tongue, hugged the plate, and disappeared in a flash. Because the mask was Xiao Su's symbol, in order to prevent people from recognizing that he was in Jiangnan, he still wore the veil hat. Originally, he had also asked Chu Qingyan to wear the veil hat, but Chu Qingyan refused because she couldn't see the scenery with the veil hat on. Xiao Su followed suit. Jiangnan was indeed full of scenery. Whether it was the buildings, the streets, or the alleys, they were all filled with the gentle beauty of Jiangnan's water villages. Every place was unique, and one would never get tired of looking at it. Big Ice Cube, when we're old, let's buy a house in Jiangnan and retire here. Life will definitely be wonderful. Chu Qingyan rested her chin on her hand as she imagined. Xiao Su glanced sideways at her and answered indifferently. He didn't say that they could do it now, and she didn't ask about it. Because both of them knew that there were too many uncertainties now, and there might be earth-shattering changes in the next moment. Therefore, most of them could only place their hopes on the future. Big Ice Cube, someone is flying a kite over there. Let's go and take a look. As she said that, she pulled the person beside her and quickly walked towards the river. The spring breeze was cool and refreshing, gently caressing their faces. The willows swayed gently, and the red flowers and green flowers were all beautiful. As for the little girl in front of him, her peach blossom face contrasted with her rosy cheeks, her unbridled brows, and her pleasant expression. As the seasons passed and autumn came, she had already shed her immaturity. Like a willow tree sprouting, she gradually revealed her own style. Big Ice Cube, let's go fly a kite too, okay? Chu Qingyan's words pulled him back from his thoughts. He looked in the direction of her finger and saw that the riverside was filled with stall owners carrying kite poles and hawking their wares. Go buy one if you like. Pay up. Chu Qingyan stretched out her hand and smiled. As long as the Big Ice Cube went out with her, she did not have the habit of carrying money. Xiao Su smiled helplessly and took out a purse from his sleeve and put it in her hand. As long as he went out with her, he must prepare a purse before leaving. Do you want to buy one for you too? Chu Qingyan asked kindly, shaking the purse in her hand. No need, buy what you like. He was already past the age of flying kites. These were all for children to play with. And the little girl had been with him for so many years, but she had never experienced the childhood that she should have. Now, he would treat it as making up for her. Chu Qingyan shrugged her shoulders and then turned around to choose. She bought a plain butterfly kite from an old man. When she brought it to him, it was rejected. The skeleton is not tied evenly, and the length of the branches is different. The workmanship is really not good. Chu Qingyan glared at him. The requirements are so high. Will you make one for me when we go back? Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. It seemed that he had said something wrong. The two of them walked to the empty riverside with their subordinates. Chu Qingyan asked Jin Xen to help hold the kite. She pulled the string and ran quickly. Bang! It fell. Chu Qingyan did not believe it and tried a few more times. Unfortunately, she did not succeed even once. In the end, she could only droop her head and return to Xiao Su's side. I don't want to play anymore. It's not fun at all. Even the children laughed at her. She did not want to embarrass herself here. You're giving up so soon? Xiao Su looked at the string in her hand and took it. He pointed at the kite in Jean Xian's hand and said to her, "Take it." Chu Qingyan did not suspect anything and took the kite in Jean Xian's hand. Then, she watched in surprise as he walked away with the string in his hand. Finally, he gestured to her from afar, and she obeyed his order and let go of the kite. At this moment, a gust of wind blew. The kite, which had been ravaged by Chu Qingyan, flew into the sky shakily. Finally, it stabilized itself in midair and caught up with the white rabbit kite that the child who had laughed at her just now. Chu Qingyan clapped her hands in amazement and shouted, "It's flying, it's flying. Big ice block, you're amazing." At this moment, a gust of wind blew and lifted the white veil. Her delicate and perfect chin was exposed in the air. In the haze, she seemed to see the big ice block smiling. The most beautiful thing in the world was when you were playing and he was smiling. Chapter 637. Big Ice Cube, you actually know how to fly a kite. After leaving the river, Chu Qingyan thought of the big ice cube teaching her how to fly a kite. She still felt a bit unsatisfied, so she spoke without thinking. Xiao Su's deep eyes looked at her. Is it very strange? Feeling the pressure in the air, Chu Qingyan immediately changed positions. It's not strange, not strange, not strange at all. Seeing her like a bird startled by the twang of a bough, Xiao Su revealed a smile. The two of them strolled along the willow bank like this. As for Huo Ling, he pulled Jean Xian aside and brought several fierce cavalry to find a spot. He quietly waited, giving these two masters a chance to be alone with each other. What are you pulling me for? Aren't you going to protect the master? Jean Xian had a confused look on his face. Are you stupid? It's such a beautiful day, why would we go and join in the fun? Huo Ling snappily said. Jean Xian didn't understand, but this is our duty. Huo Ling shook his head. Even your family's Xining understands this, so why are you such a block of wood? Do you want to be a bright lantern? Jean Xian's face turned dark. It was fine as long as they didn't disturb the master. Why did they have to drag in Xining? Huo Ling ignored this awkward youth. He squatted on the side and watched the play with his head down. He didn't know if this scene was too harmonious or if his mood was too relaxed. Xiao Su looked at the sparkling river and thought about the little fellow's words. He suddenly realized that there were countless memories in his mind. When I was 4 years old, I already knew how to make a kite. When these soft words came out, they seemed like they would be blown away by the wind, but Chu Qingyan still keenly grasped them. 4 years old? That young? Let me think, I only knew how to make mud at that time. She didn't dare say it out loud. Comparing people really was embarrassing. Xiao Su looked at her. I can see it. Chu Qingyan protested. There are some things that you should just know, don't say it out loud. Xiao Su revealed a faint smile. How did you learn how to make a kite at such a young age? Did anyone teach you? It was rare for the big ice cube to take the initiative to talk about the past. How could she miss it? Xiao Su sank into his memories. Every spring, there would be people flying kites at the palace gates. Standing in front of the palace hall, one could see kites flying high in the sky. At that time, it was very novel, so I went to find Imperial Father. However, the Imperial Father was very busy at that time and didn't have time to pay attention to me. So I went to find Imperial Mother. Imperial Mother said that she couldn't indulge in these kinds of activities and refused. Actually, it's not difficult at all. He sighed and disappeared into the wind. As soon as he finished speaking, he felt a softness on his palm. He lowered his head and saw the person beside him looking at him with eyes full of pity. At this moment, their palms were pressed together, and warmth burned his heart. My big ice cube is really amazing. He knows how to make a kite at such a young age, and he doesn't even need help. You are my idol. Chu Qingyan's eyes curved as she smiled warmly. Xiao Su raised his other hand to caress her head, his eyes clear. No need to comfort me. It's all in the past. There's no comfort. Aren't you amazing? Even a 4-year-old child would cry for things. How could someone who is self-reliant understand? Chu Qingyan blinked very sincerely. Are you talking about yourself? Xiao Su raised his brows. I'm comforting you out of goodwill, but you're actually mocking me. I've decided to ignore you. Chu Qingyan gave a cold snort and tried to pull back her hand in a fit of pique. Unfortunately, the other party had a firm grip and she couldn't break free. At this time, she felt someone lightly scratch her nose. She looked up and saw him withdrawing his hand. Little fellow, you're hard to please. He chuckled. Chu Qingyan's face turned red. It was unknown if it was because of his intimate actions or because of his words. She could only stomp her foot and glare at him. You're confusing right and wrong. You're bullying me again. As soon as she finished speaking, he exerted force on her hand and she fell into his embrace that was filled with the scent of ink. Sometimes she would be curious. He was clearly Satan on the battlefield, but why did he have the aura of a scholar? Be good, I won't bully you. A gentle voice fell by her ear. Chu Qingyan felt that her ears were about to turn soft. This voice was so pleasant to the ear. Coupled with these words, it was simply enough to make one's heart go soft. At that moment, she felt that Big Ice Cube was really very good to her. He really wouldn't bully her like he said. But every time she was in bed, she would remember what he said by the river that day. She couldn't help but point at his nose and complain. You said you wouldn't bully me. What are you doing now? Eating you. Hey, that's my finger. Was complaining useful? It was nothing more than being eaten clean over and over again. On the willow bank, the sky was clear and the wind was gentle. The sunlight was warm, and everything was so beautiful that one couldn't help but want to indulge in it. Big Ice Cube, every spring, let's fly a kite together. Then you can help me throw those children's kites far away. She nestled in his embrace with a sly smile on her face. He knew that she had been brooding over those children's mockery just now. He couldn't help but curve his lips. She really was a child. The warmth in his embrace made his thoughts drift away once again. But when he thought about it, it wasn't that sad anymore. Perhaps it was because there was someone by his side that dispelled the coldness. He could still remember that time when he used a small knife to cut bamboo again and again, causing him to be riddled with scars. When he finally finished, he held the finished product, but he had already lost the desire to fly. Because what he yearned for was only the company of his parents. However, he thought that if he had met this little fellow at that time, perhaps the kite that had been hidden would have been able to fly. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but smile. How could the 4-year-old him have met her? At that time, he didn't even know where she was. This matter, a long time later, when he was making kites with his little child, he would unintentionally mention it to her. He saw that she was overjoyed, so he didn't understand and asked her, only to hear her say, "If I knew that someone would think of me like this, I would have definitely transmigrated from the modern world. But let me say this first, I was also 4 years old at that time and only knew how to live in mud." That's right, if her soul hadn't transmigrated into Sher Sui's body, her real age would have been the same as his. It's just that I have an extra chance to accompany you at the age of 10. You accompanied me as I grew up, and I accompanied you as you healed. On the shore to the side, Hualing reached out a hand to cover Jean Xian's eyes, then covered his own eyes with the other hand, then shouted, "Little child, see no evil, see no evil." Jean Xian's lips twitched. Just cover it a little better. What's the meaning of your fingertips being severed? Some scars, perhaps deeply rooted in the depths of one's memory, would sometimes appear because of familiar scenes and then faintly hurt. This wasn't something that could be ignored just because one wanted to forget it. What one missed was that feeling in the past, as well as the pity that one would no longer have in the future. However, no matter how painful the wound, as long as it was given to the right person, it would be alleviated. If one was lucky they could accompany each other for a lifetime, then perhaps they would recover. You accompanied me as I grew up, and I accompanied you as you healed. Chapter 638. At this time, it was the peak period of people coming and going. Chu Qingyan was dressed as a man, leaning on Xiao Su's body. In the eyes of outsiders, it only looked like two men hugging and hugging each other. There were people who began to point at them. Public morals were really degenerating with each passing day. Two grown men were actually doing such a thing in broad daylight. Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su both chose not to look sideways, but Xiao Su also let go of her and led her along the river. Because Chu Qingyan was not wearing a mask, nor was she wearing a veil hat, her beautiful face was like a moving ice stone. Wherever she went, there would be people who could not take their eyes off her, especially women. Xiao Su's face was somewhat ugly, but Chu Qingyan was not aware of it. At this time, a young girl boldly walked out from the shoving of her good sisters, and directly walked in front of Chu Qingyan. Chu Qingyan did not understand what this girl who suddenly appeared wanted to do, and asked in a good tone, "Miss, what's the matter?" The girl's face was already pink, but when she heard this melodious voice, she could not help but blush even more. Young master, can I invite you to go on a boat trip with me?" The girl gathered her courage and stammered out her words. Chu Qingyan looked at the small boat behind her. There were already 2 or 3 young girls standing on it. She was about to answer, but the person beside her had already tugged on her sleeve, silently urging her to hurry up. Chu Qingyan immediately said to the girl, "I'm really sorry, your boat is too small. This one is afraid that if the 2 of us get on, you won't be able to walk." With that, Chu Qingyan politely nodded, and then slowly continued to walk forward with the person beside her. The girl followed her direction and looked, her heart thumping. What a gentle young man. Wait a minute, what the hell was that? Why were 2 men walking together hand in hand? Sob. Women are so pitiful now. They have to fight over men with women, and they have to fight over men with men. Do they want to die? Chu Qingyan looked at the hand that was grabbing her wrist. She was a little confused. Big Ice Cube's actions were strange, but she didn't think too much about it. People were coming and going, and if they weren't careful, they would get separated. This was good, at least they wouldn't get lost. Soon, the 2 of them arrived at an arched bridge. Under the bridge, there was a field of lotus leaves. On both sides of the bridge, there were people selling paper umbrellas. The sunlight shone on the surface of the river, and the sparkling light was somewhat dazzling. Chu Qingyan felt that her whole body was very warm. When the arch bridge came into view, Chu Qingyan seemed to have thought of something. She suddenly pointed at the arch bridge and said to the people around her, "Big Ice Cube, do you know? There is also a bridge like this on the West Lake." Many people met their marriage on the bridge, especially a legend about a man and a white snake. It has been passed down for thousands of years. Do you want to hear it? Xiao Su wasn't very interested in this kind of folklore, but seeing her expression that she really wanted to tell him, he couldn't help but smile and nod. "Tell me about it. If you tell it well, I'll take you to eat delicious food tonight." Upon hearing that there was delicious food, Chu Qingyan's eyes lit up. Although the food in the bank was passable, her stomach had been spoiled by Big Ice Cube. Ordinary food couldn't enter her eyes. "I guarantee that you will be satisfied." Chu Qingyan licked her lips and then began to tell the legendary story. Once upon a time, a white snake was saved by a cowherd boy. That white snake already understood human nature. She remembered this cowherd boy and swore that when she turned into a human, she would repay him. Just like that, hundreds of years passed. This white snake cultivated into a spirit and was named by Suzhin. She was also enlightened by Guanyin Bodhisattva. As long as she concentrated on cultivation, she could be ranked among the immortals. But this Bai Suzhin said that she still had a favor to repay, so she needed to go down to the mortal world. At first, Xiao Su was just listening to her nonchalantly, but her clear and beautiful voice, accompanied by the flowing water of the willow bank, made him unconsciously listen to her. At this time, the 2 people were slowly walking up the stone steps. Chu Qingyan was in high spirits and continued to speak. Bai Suzhin went down to the mortal world and took the green snake Xiao Qing as her younger sister. Then they went to the West Lake to find their benefactor. They waited for several days on the West Lake and finally, their benefactor, Su Shilin, also known as Su Xian, came. The 2 people met on this arch bridge. A talented man and a beautiful woman. Their hearts were as one, and their marriage was ingeniously formed. Some people can be determined at a glance. Fate is so wonderful. The two people just happened to walk to the bridge. Chu Qingyan smiled and pointed. Then she tilted her head and asked, "Big Ice Cube, doesn't this story sound very beautiful?" Xiao Su did not comment. He asked back, "This story should not be finished yet." Chu Qingyan was slightly surprised. "Big Ice Cube, you are simply amazing. This is indeed only half of the story. How did you guess?" Xiao Su pointed. Normally, a person was about to become an immortal, but failed to live up to his original intention. Moreover, humans and demons have different paths, so not all legends are beautiful. Chu Qingyan nodded. Big Ice Cube's thinking was always so clear. She sighed and said, "That's right, it is indeed so. Humans and demons have different paths, and the heavens cannot tolerate it. Therefore, at this time, a monk who took the responsibility of subduing demons and eliminating demons appeared. He was Fahai. In the whole story, he did his best to play the role of forcing the two people apart. Although their love was stronger than gold, in the end, one was imprisoned in Leifeng Pagoda, and the other escaped into Buddhism. At this point, Chu Qingyan turned and asked, "Big Ice Cube, if you were in a place where there were humans, demons, immortals, and temples, and you were just a mortal, and the woman you liked was a demon, what would you do?" This assumption is not valid. Xiao Su once again used this reason to refute her. Chu Qingyan spread her hands. Big Ice Cube was so emotionless. "Alright, actually, this story is not over yet. Tragedy is to destroy all the beautiful things in the world for others to see. But sometimes, people can conquer the heavens, and tragedy can be reversed at the last moment." 20 years later, Bai Suzhen came out of the pagoda and returned to the secular world. Together with Fahai and the other two, they became immortals and became immortals. In the end, the lovers still became dependents. Chu Qingyan narrated the final ending one by one. It can be considered a good beginning and a good ending. Xiao Su gave a fair evaluation. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan smiled and said, "This is a mythical story that has been around for a long time. It is often told to children and passed down from generation to generation. In fact, it should be the kind of truth that as long as one has good intentions and perseveres and does not give up, everything will be perfect in the end." Xiao Su did not comment. At this time, Chu Qingyan was attracted by the green lotus under the bridge. She could not help but lie on the stone pole and look at the dark green lotus leaves below. The river water was clear, and there were many fish swimming in the water at the roots. Chu Qingyan stretched out her hand, and Jean Exon, who was beside her, handed her a steamed bun. Then, in an instant, she disappeared again. Xiao Su looked at the person lying on the bridge feeding the fish. His ears recalled her question just now, and he pondered seriously with interest. If she was really a demon, then he would accompany her to enter the path of demons, so that the two of them would not be separated by different paths. It was actually that simple. You accompany me to become a human, or I accompany you to become a demon. Chapter 639. Jiangnan was like a beautiful ink painting. The evening mist covered the surface of the river, the shadows of boats, the distant mountains, everything was beautiful. The vast Jiangnan water villages, the mountain villages and buildings, the naughty birds could be seen flying over the water, the green trees reflected clusters of red flowers, the vitality of spring, all of these scenes played out in front of her eyes. Chu Qingyan suddenly had the impulse to settle down here for the rest of her life. Big Ice Block, have you been to Jiangnan before? Chu Qingyan asked curiously. And a few times. Xiao Su recalled, he basically came to visit friends. Seeing Jiangnan, do you have the feeling of forgetting home? She continued to ask. Xiao Su knew what she wanted to say. He smiled faintly, but unfortunately, the gauze hat covered his smile. If you go to many places in the future, you will feel that your horizons will be broadened. It's a pity that I don't have the chance to go out. How about when we are not busy in the future, we can travel the world? Chu Qingyan still did not forget her dream. She believed that everyone had the same dream in their heart, and that was to eat all over the world and travel all over the world. Although he did not know when this future would come, he believed that he would help her achieve this wish. She also did not know when this sentence would be fulfilled, but she always believed that he would not lie to her. At this time, the two walked to a crooked peach tree. Coincidentally, there were several bamboos growing beside it. Chu Qingyan's mind popped up with a poem that she had learned before. Outside the bamboos, there are 3 or 2 peach blossoms. The duck knows when the spring river is warm, the artemisia is everywhere, the reed buds are short, it is the time when the pufferfish is about to rise. Not bad. Xiao Su praised. Chu Qingyan embarrassedly waved her hand. This is not a poem that I wrote, I just borrowed the ancient poem to match the situation. I am not praising you, I am praising the poem. Xiao Su did not want to attack her, but every time she would bump into him, the smile on the corner of her mouth froze. Chu Qingyan once again felt the taste of withering in the wind. Half of the river was rustling, and the other half was red. On the shore, the red and black contrasted with each other, becoming the most beautiful sight on the shores of Jiangnan. Like I said, Master and the little princess consort are a match made in heaven. Hualing clicked his tongue on the side. Jean Exen glanced at him. Since you have this awareness, why don't you tell His Highness and Master? Hualing rolled his eyes at him. You don't understand. The most beautiful thing is when it's hazy. When the conditions are right, success is the most beautiful thing. Really? I've heard you say that for a few years. Are you going to continue saying it for a few more years? Jean Exen found it unbelievable. Xining is not here. Do you think that no one can deal with you? Your words are becoming more and more unpleasant to hear. Stay 3 feet away from me. I've decided I won't talk to you for an hour. Hualing was exposed and became angry from embarrassment. He stood up and walked to the side before squatting down. She used her actions to show that she didn't want to talk to him. What did Jean Exen think was wrong with this world? Why did everyone mention Xining to him? So what if Xining was here? So what if she wasn't here? Xining, who was thousands of miles away, gave a heavy sneeze. She rubbed her nose. She kept sneezing recently. Did she catch a cold? Leaving the riverside, Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su walked on the bustling streets. After walking for half a day, she was so hungry that her chest was sticking to her back. Chu Qingyan felt like she couldn't walk anymore. She pulled on the sleeve of the person in front of her and said with a pitiful expression, "Big ice cube, I'm so hungry that I can't walk anymore. Please eat." In the waning lights, the jade-like skin in front of him was like a shining pearl. In the noisy streets, it made him lose focus for a moment. When she repeated herself, he finally came back to his senses. The first thought that flashed through his mind was that it was a good thing he was wearing a veil hat. Otherwise, she would have seen him lose focus and would have laughed at him for a while. You want to eat? Chu Qingyan nodded heavily. Her eyes were starting to spin. She was so hungry. Let's go, I'll take you to get a free meal. Huh? Chu Qingyan lost her train of thought. Why aren't we leaving? Xiao Su face-bombed. Aren't you hungry? We're leaving now. She came back to her senses and immediately jumped in front of him. It was so amazing that the big ice cube would take her to get a free meal. Chu Qingyan was full of questions, but this feeling was really amazing. It was so rare that the big ice cube could joke. However, when the group of people walked through the streets, from the bustling streets to the quiet main road, and finally stopped in front of a mansion, Chu Qingyan looked up at the words with her mouth wide open. Lin Mansion. Big Ice Cube, isn't this your good friend's residence? Why were they here? Seeing her face full of surprise, Xiao Su smiled. He came back today. Actually, he had planned to take her for a walk. Coincidentally, he had received a message from his good friend this morning. He wanted to tell her today, but he didn't expect her to take the initiative to come out for a walk, so he went with the flow. He's back? Let's go see the most handsome man in Jiangnan. Chu Qingyan felt that her eyes were no longer blurry, her legs were no longer twitching, and she wasn't that hungry anymore. She wanted to feast her eyes first. Xiao Su frowned. When did Feng Yi become the most handsome man in Jiangnan? Why didn't he know? At this moment, they had already run far away. Little brother, we want to see Lord Lin Fengyi. Chu Qingyan blinked and pretended to be cute to the guard. Although it was shameful to act cute, the guard still liked it. Do you have an invitation? In an instant she was slapped back. Failing to show her face, Chu Qingyan walked back to her big ice cube in disappointment. Big ice cube, hurry and show your face. Xiao Su wouldn't be as childish as her. After giving an order to Huo Ling came forward with the invitation. After the guard checked it, he sent someone to report and let them in. Chu Qingyan followed beside Xiao Su and slowly walked in. What entered her eyes was a large blue stone erected in front of her. She didn't know what kind of words were carved on it and then drawn on it with a red brush. Although she couldn't understand it, it didn't stop others from appreciating its unusual beauty. Green bamboos stood in great numbers, and the cobblestone path extended forward. There were no extravagant decorations, nor were there any pavilions or buildings. There were only graceful willow leaves stretching out, and hibiscus and jasmine flowers blooming. The white stone walls were inlaid with hollow windows. Some were shaped like leaves, some were shaped like blooming flowers, and some were shaped like fortune, prosperity, and longevity. From this point of view, one could see the leisurely and elegant temperament of the owner of this mansion. After entering a courtyard, someone came forward to lead the way and replace the guard. Then he led the group to another path. Their field of vision slowly widened. It was a courtyard filled with light purple flowers. In the center of the flowers, there was a small pavilion. Please take a seat. My lord is just reviewing some documents and will be here soon. After saying this, the servant left. Chu Qingyan stood in the pavilion and looked at the sea of flowers with starry eyes. So beautiful. This is lavender, right? Xiao Su, your daughter has good taste. It's indeed lavender. A voice that was as bright as the light penetrating the ice suddenly came with the wind. Chapter 640. This voice came suddenly, but it was unexpectedly pleasant to the ears. She looked over and saw a pale white figure in the sea of purple flowers, which was especially eye-catching. His face was like the spring plum blossoms blooming with snow, so pure. Autumn chrysanthemums covered with frost, so quiet. Pine trees grew in the empty valley, so beautiful. Rosy clouds reflected in the clear pond. His fairy-like robe fluttered, smelling the fragrance of musk orchids, and his lotus robe was about to move. His features were delicate, and he was as clear as ice. What a handsome man! Chu Qingyan felt that the description of him on the ranking list was very fitting. This was a man who was like a clear breeze in bamboo. Cough cough. A few light coughs suddenly sounded, which made Chu Qingyan snap back to reality. Then she immediately felt the displeased gaze of the people beside her. She raised her hand and smiled awkwardly at the person who walked in front of her. She greeted, "Hi, how are you?" Lin Fengyi couldn't help but smile. He teased his friend who looked a little unhappy. "This is your child? Sorry for making a fool of myself." Xiao Su had already taken off his veil hat and answered calmly. Chu Qingyan had already calmed down, but when she heard the conversation between the two, a cross appeared on her forehead. Hey, is it really okay to talk about me like this?" Lin Fengyi heard his friend's answer and looked deeply at Chu Qingyan. Then he nodded and introduced himself. "I am Lin Fengyi, Xiao Su's old friend for many years." The other party had already extended a friendly olive branch. Chu Qingyan immediately accepted it. "I am Chu Qingyan. I have long heard of young Master Lin's great name. Now that I have met you, you really live up to your reputation." "Great name? It's just a false name." Lin Fengyi sat down and took the initiative to make wine and tea for the two of them. Chu Qingyan touched her nose. This Lin Fengyi was gentle and elegant, but his personality seemed a little cold. "He is just so aloof." "You'll get used to it," Xiao Su said. Chu Qingyan nodded in agreement. But Big Ice Cube's friends were all really good-looking. Could it be that birds of a feather flocked together? Those who were good-looking and those who were good-looking had all gathered together. Lin Fengyi glanced at his good friend and then continued to prepare the cups. "What's that smell? It smells so good." Chu Qingyan was attracted by the fragrance wafting through the pavilion. Finally, her gaze landed on Lin Fengyi's hand. "This is plum wine. It was brewed last winter and has been buried under the locust tree. I knew that you were coming today, so I got someone to dig it out for you to try. Lin Fengyi prepared to pour a cup for Chu Qingyan. Chu Qingyan smacked her lips and couldn't help but reach out to take it. Unfortunately, it was intercepted halfway. Looking at her empty hands, Chu Qingyan turned to glare at the culprit behind all of this. Lin Fengyi was a little confused as well. Then he heard Xiao Su say, "Just give her a cup of tea." "Why should I?" Chu Qingyan exploded. Xiao Su glanced at her. Instantly, her hair fell off one by one. "You can't drink, and you don't know how to drink." Chu Qingyan mumbled a few words before taking the cup of tea from Lin Fengyi. Lin Fengyi was very curious about their interaction. However, he wasn't like Yi Lingfeng who spoke whatever was on his mind. Instead, he explained to Chu Qingyan, "This is Longjing tea boiled with the first snow. The taste won't be worse than plum wine. Try it." Chu Qingyan was immediately appeased by Lin Fengyi's comforting words. She happily tasted it. At this moment, a Sichuan lord and an important minister of the Sichuan government started to talk about official matters. "How are you adapting in Jiangnan?" Xiao Su took a sip of the wine and asked. "When I first arrived, I didn't have a clue. After a busy year, I've more or less taken over everything." Lin Fengyi smiled faintly. Xiao Su knew that his good friend wasn't good at complaining. Since he had already gone through all the hardships, there was no need for him to talk about the rest. Jiangnan is really big. It's a piece of juicy meat. Everyone wants to take a bite. Lin Fengyi shook his head as if he was joking. However, Chu Qingyan understood the hidden meaning behind his words. At this moment, she heard the person beside her reply, "Salt merchants, palace purchases, merchants fighting, and officials fighting. That's about it." However, with pressure comes motivation. Although I haven't rested much this year, now that I've straightened things out, we can start with the peddlers. As you know, the corruption here is too serious. If we don't punish them soon, they will become a malignant tumor. Lin Fengyi poured himself a cup of wine, his tone still carrying a faint smile. Sichuan is really too corrupt. Back when Big Ice Block went up north, he even beat down a lot of vermin. Chu Qingyan was a little puzzled. Sichuan looked very luxurious on the surface, but why were there so many loopholes? As if he could read Chu Qingyan's mind, Lin Fengyi explained, "That's because Xixian has your big ice cube outside to protect its safety. Xixian has been in a state of peace for at least 10 years now. That's why people will think about sex when they are full and warm. People will quickly lose themselves in their comfort and pleasure. Furthermore, officials will protect each other, and wantonly amass wealth is something that happens in every country. It's just that it has gotten more rampant in recent years. Otherwise, His Majesty wouldn't have specially sent your big ice cube to clean up those vermin in the name of prospecting." Lin Fengyi kept calling Chu Qingyan, "your big ice cube." His words made Chu Qingyan feel embarrassed. If it wasn't for the fact that the three of them were sitting together comfortably, Chu Qingyan would not have called Lin Fengyi by his nickname. Chu Qingyan casually found an excuse and ran to the lavender garden to admire the flowers. Xiao Su glanced at his good friend. "You purposely sent her away? You're thinking too much. I just think that these 3 words are quite funny. It's rare for someone to give you such a considerate nickname." Lin Fengyi curved his lips. It was hard to tell if he was sincerely praising him or just teasing him. Xiao Su glared at him. Lin Fengyi was overjoyed. "Your imperial grandfather has good taste. He's just a blind cat running into a dead mouse." Xiao Su thought of his imperial grandfather, who was like an old urchin, and couldn't help but feel a headache. "Don't let him hear what you're saying. Otherwise, he'll make trouble for you." Lin Fengyi added insult to injury. Xiao Su brushed his sleeves and looked at him from the corner of his eyes. "Same to you." The two of them couldn't help but laugh. As the magistrate of Jiangnan, there are too many things that you need to do. If there are some things that you can't solve and need to use certain methods, you can tell Hualing. You can use the manpower at your disposal. Xiao Su said seriously. Lin Fengyi leaned against the pillar behind him, his expression somewhat leisurely. "I don't need to use them at the moment. You know that I like to rely on myself. I won't turn back until I hit a wall. However, with Shaolai cavalry as my backing, I have a lot more confidence. Xiao Su drank his tea and smiled. He already knew his good friend's personality. To be able to remain untainted by the mud in the officialdom, it was really rare. However, you should worry about yourself first. There's been a lot of rumors in the capital recently. Although Lin Fengyi's posture was confident and at ease, there was a hint of seriousness in his eyes as he looked deeply at his good friend in front of him. Chapter 641. Let's hear it. Xiao Su continued. Recently, there have been a lot of conflicts on the border between Sichuan and Nansong. There has even been unrest. The confrontation between the two countries is slowly reaching a stalemate. If nothing unexpected happens, I'm afraid the two countries will go to war by the end of this year. Lin Fengyi's tone was rather serious. If the two countries go to war based on past experience, you will definitely have to take command. The court has already begun to discuss this. Although you have the most support, His Majesty seems to want the fourth prince to personally lead the troops. Anyone with a discerning eye can see that His Majesty wants the fourth prince to make contributions and increase his bargaining chip in certain matters. In the past 5 years, the number of descendants of your mother's family entering the court as officials has decreased. The number of promotions has also decreased. It's not hard to say that someone is deliberately holding them back. Yes, I've also received this news recently. Xiao Su nodded. Lin Fengyi saw his indifferent appearance and couldn't help but be a little puzzled. In the past, during these wars, weren't you always very concerned about the Liang family's matters? Why do you look like it has nothing to do with you now? This isn't your style. I'm alone and weak. I can't change the overall situation. If I think too much, I'll be worrying too much. He played with the wine cup in his hand. The wine swirled in the cup. The clear orange color reflected his indifferent eyes. Lin Fengyi was slightly surprised to see him like this. Is it very strange? Xiao Su chuckled. Lin Fengyi thought for a moment, then said, if it was in the past, it would indeed be very strange. But now, it seems to make sense. Why do you say so? Xiao Su asked with interest. What did his good friend think of something that even he didn't know? Do you really want to say it? Xiao Su glanced at him, but didn't answer. Lin Fengyi shook his head. You're still so calm. After saying this, Lin Fengyi took a sip of wine and his gaze landed on the person in front of him again. Then he slowly opened his mouth and said with some emotion in his tone, perhaps the feeling you give me today has changed a lot. In the past, you were very sharp and you prioritized national affairs. You didn't care about fighting wars everywhere. You were like a rootless dandelion. Wherever your father wanted you to go, you would go. Now, you make me feel that you want to settle down and don't want to be manipulated anymore. Drifting is always tiring. Xiao Su sighed. You're made of iron. When you were working so hard in the past, Ling Feng and I both advised you. At that time, you didn't slack off. Now that you've settled down for a few years, you're tired of your old life. To be honest, it's because you have someone you want to settle down with, or someone you want to protect. After saying this, Lin Fengyi's gaze landed on the lavender garden. Xiao Su followed his gaze and saw a beautiful red figure jumping in the garden. His gaze softened. She has the ability to protect herself now. I just don't want to drag her into the whirlpool of power struggles. I've been there for 20 years and I know best. Once a person has experienced stability, they won't want to go back to those drifting days of the past. However, you won't be able to escape from this whirlpool. At most, you can only live peacefully for 3 more months. Once the two countries start a war, neither your father nor your mother will allow you to stay here. If your fourth brother wins, then the position of crown prince will be set in stone. With your mother's personality, do you think she'll let it go? On the other hand, if you lose, you won't be far from returning to the imperial court. Lin Fengyi analyzed. Xiao Su sighed. You're always so direct and accurate. I hope that what you predicted won't happen. Otherwise, do you think it's easy to be the magistrate? Without insight and observation skills, I would have been pushed down a long time ago. Lin Fengyi shook his head and sighed. You have to finish the path you chose even if you have to kneel down. Xiao Su replied indifferently. You learned this from your daughter, right? Lin Fengyi laughed. Of course I'll finish the path I chose. If I can't finish it, it's not a bad idea to go to your side and be a military advisor. I'll wait for you. The two smiled at each other and stopped talking about national affairs. Instead, they chatted about the past in a relaxed tone. In the pavilion, faint voices could be heard, but it wasn't very clear. Chu Qingyan stood in the sea of flowers, using her hand to cover her forehead as she looked into the distance. At this time, the sun was about to set. Only a gorgeous sunset could be seen on the horizon. She didn't know why, but she felt very peaceful at this time. What are you thinking about? After an unknown period of time, a voice sounded from beside her. Chu Qingyan's back was facing him, and she smiled lightly. I'm thinking about what the flower language of lavender is. Flower language? He felt that this term was very unfamiliar to him. Here, I'll give you a stalk of lavender. She suddenly turned around and placed the bouquet in her hand in front of him. The sudden appearance of the purple bouquet and the brilliant smile of the flower queen were like fireworks in the night, lighting up his sky. Xiao Su subconsciously took the bouquet. Gift Buddha with borrowed flowers? The smile on her face instantly froze. Big ice cube, you can ignore the origin of this flower. Xiao Su only smiled and didn't say anything. At this time, an untimely gulp sounded between the two of them. He laughed softly, and the person in front of him blushed like a peach. Big ice cube, I'm hungry. Didn't we agree on a free meal? Chu Qingyan tugged at his sleeve with a pitiful expression. Xiao Su couldn't help but raise his hand to pat her head. Feng Yi should be ready soon. I'll take you to a free meal. Oh yeah. Chu Qingyan bounced in front of him, urging him to hurry up. At this time, a teasing voice sounded. I don't think I said that I wanted you to stay for a meal just now. Is it really okay for you to make the decision for me so openly? Chu Qingyan was startled. Only now did she realize that Lin Fengyi was standing in front of the garden. She didn't know how long he had been there, but from the expression on his face, she could tell that he had been watching for quite some time. Chu Qingyan inexplicably felt shy, and she consciously stood beside the big ice cube, using his body to shield her. Magistrate Lin, don't tell me you can't even afford a meal? Xiao Su was in the mood to tease him. His Royal Highness has already spoken, how can this official dare to disobey? This way please. Lin Fengyi bowed slightly and extended his hand to invite them. Magistrate Lin, please. Xiao Su readily agreed. The group of people slowly walked forward, and from time to time, laughter could be heard. This was how relaxed and unrestrained the moment was. The night had gradually deepened. Thin clouds lingered in the sky, and bits of starlight flashed. As the breeze blew, the stars mischievously blinked. Under the white wall, purple lavender swayed in the wind, and a faint floral fragrance lingered in the entire garden. As the wind blew, a series of crisp rustling sounds could be heard. It was as if they were whispering sweet nothings. It was also as if he was waiting for an unexpected romance. Chapter 642. The banquet was held in the courtyard. The spacious courtyard was planted with pine, cypress, and ginkgo trees. Although there weren't any luxurious decorations, such a quiet environment had a different feel to it. Wow, this steamed perch is really good. Chu Qingyan instantly turned into a foodie. Although the dishes on the table were relatively light, the taste was very good. I don't have any hobbies, but I have this appetite for good food. Lin Fengyi was in a good mood to receive sincere praise from a guest. Don't blame others for giving you a nickname, Xiao Su said. What nickname? Chu Qingyan was immediately attracted. She blinked her eyes in curiosity. Miser. Xiao Su didn't give his good friend any face at all and threw it at him. What does that mean? Chu Qingyan widened her eyes. This word had nothing to do with the handsome Lin Fengyi in front of her, okay? Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. Could it be that there's another meaning? Is it really righteous to talk bad about me in front of Qingyan? Lin Fengyi shook his head. I never said that I was a righteous person. Xiao Su's words successfully made Lin Fengyi choke. Lin Fengyi didn't want to talk to this person. Instead, he turned to Chu Qingyan. Does he usually talk bad to you like this? Chu Qingyan glanced at the calm ice cube, then looked at the handsome Lin Fengyi in front of her. She shook her head honestly. He usually doesn't talk bad. Just as she was about to say that only a good friend like him would receive such treatment, Lin Fengyi's face was already filled with disappointment as he said, "Who said that a grown woman can't be kept at home, and a grown man can't be kept at home either? Back then, when the three of us were drinking together, who was the one who was unanimously judged by all of us to be unable to be a woman? But now, he's prioritizing women over friends to this extent. The world is truly fickle. No, that brat Ling Feng also said that he wanted to play with women for a few more years. Who would have thought that we would be the first to fall in love?" Chu Qingyan blushed at his words. She could only concentrate on eating, trying to reduce her presence. Xiao Su's expression changed. Ling Feng sent a letter a few months ago, saying that his wife gave birth to another child. Chu Qingyan and Lin Fengyi were both stunned. Chu Qingyan spoke first. "This is the third one, right?" Ever since 3 years ago, Yi Lingfeng had asked for a marriage for 2 years and finally got the beauty back, he began to diligently make babies. 1 a year, it was simply too fast. Originally, Yi Lingfeng said that he would take Duguqing to the Sichuan for a walk, but he never had time because his wife was either pregnant or giving birth to a child. She was simply too busy. "It's not the third one, it's a pair. Dragon and Phoenix twins," Xiao Su added. This time, he couldn't help but admire his good friend. Chu Qingyan's eyes were filled with surprise. Although she admired their speed, she was still very happy for them. They had the crystallization of their love, and they had the fruits of their love. That's 2 sons and 2 daughters. It's really a happy thing in life. "Alright, Big Ice Cube, how much should we pay this time?" "Just send them off casually. Who knows, there might be another pair next year." Lin Fengyi didn't hold back at all. Xiao Su nodded. "That makes sense. Qingyan, just casually send them off." Chu Qingyan's eyes twitched. Were they really good friends? Was this really okay? "Aren't you afraid that big brother Ling Feng and big sister Dugu will settle the score with you?" Chu Qingyan felt that with their personalities, it was highly possible. "I'm just afraid that they won't come," Xiao Su continued. "Last year, he even told me that he would come to Jiangnan this summer. It seems that it will be delayed again." Lin Fengyi smiled faintly. Chu Qingyan could hear the faint pity in Lin Fengyi's words. They hadn't seen Duguqing and Yi Lingfeng for almost 5 years. Speaking of which, they really missed each other. However, it was good to know that they were happy and healthy. "Come, let's toast to big brother Lingfeng's pair of twins." Chu Qingyan raised her teacup and laughed heartily. "Yes, this is something worth celebrating." Lin Fengyi raised his wine cup and clinked it with the 2 of them. Some people used wine to drown their sorrows, while others used it to liven things up. And at this moment, it was the best way to liven things up. The moon hung high in the sky, and the stars shone brightly. The wine cups were drunk, and the cups and plates were in a mess. After dinner, Lin Fengyi sent them to the door. "You still have to take the things I said to heart. Not caring is one thing, but I'm afraid that those things will come to you sooner or later. Although it's rare to see such a carefree side of you and I'm very gratified, you still have to be on your guard." Lin Fengyi was no longer joking around at the dinner table. At this moment, his face was serious, and his tone was filled with concern. "I know what to do." Xiao Su patted his shoulder lightly. Some things, for good friends, didn't need to be said clearly. For example, gratitude. Chu Qingyan was about to leave with Big Ice Block when she heard someone calling her from behind. She stopped and looked at him in confusion. Big Ice Block nodded at her and waited for her at the bottom of the stairs. "Big brother Lin, is there anything else?" Chu Qingyan asked with a smile. "Qingyan, although today is the first time I've seen you, I've heard of you a long time ago. You can't be considered a stranger." Lin Fengyi stood under the lantern. The dim yellow light enveloped him, making him look even gentler. Although Xiao Su looks like a strong and indestructible iron wall, among the 3 of us, I'm most worried about him. He looks cold, but he's the one who values relationships the most. Otherwise, he wouldn't have hurt his parents to the point that he wanted to give up everything. Chu Qingyan listened to him quietly. A touch of sadness and heartache appeared in her eyes. Whenever others mentioned big ice blocks past, she would feel the same way. But since I know that you're by his side, I'm more or less relieved. He's very closed off. Very few people can get close to him, especially women. But you're the first person who can stay by his side after so many years. I really hope that you can bring him the warmth of a family. Although he's usually a little cold, he's a person who's cold on the outside but warm on the inside. It's hard to get into his heart. As long as you have the heart to get close to him, you'll be able to warm him up sooner or later. Lin Fengyi said a lot. In the end, he was a little embarrassed. Actually, I don't talk much usually. It's just that I drank some wine and haven't seen you for many years. I'm a little emotional. If I've said anything wrong, please don't treat me as an outsider. Chu Qingyan shook her head. She said sincerely, Big Brother Lin, please don't say that. I'm very happy for our big ice block. It's because he has a good friend like you who's always thinking for him. I've always been very glad that you and Big Brother Ling Feng exist. If it weren't for you, he would be too lonely. Lin Fengyi smiled. Actually, Ling Feng and I should be the ones saying this. We're also very glad that you're here. Because you're here, you've warmed his world. Chapter 643. After saying goodbye to Lin Fengyi, the group strolled along the streets of the bank. What did he say to you? As they walked, Xiao Su couldn't help asking this. As soon as his voice fell, Chu Qingyan's face inexplicably turned red. It was a good thing the sky was dark and the big ice cube should not be able to see it. She took a deep breath and then turned her face to the side. He said that your temper is strange and told me not to argue with you. Just that? Xiao Su didn't believe her. Just that? She straightened her neck and said, she couldn't tell the big ice cube that Big Brother Lin wanted them to have a baby soon, right? She might as well dig a hole and hide in it. This Big Brother Lin looked like a proper person, but why was he like a gossipy woman worrying about her? The more Chu Qingyan thought about it, the redder her face became and the lower her head became. It was a pity that the sky was dark and for a person with high martial arts, it was not an obstacle at all. Xiao Su saw the suspicious blush on her face and he couldn't help narrowing his eyes. What did Lin Fengyi say to the little fellow? Why did something become wrong as soon as they left the Lin Manor? It seemed like he had to have the little fellow interact less with that fox. Because it was still early when they left the Lin Manor, Hua Ling and Jin Xen hid their figures and scattered around the two of them, silently protecting them. Xiao Su brought Chu Qingyan along as they slowly walked along the streets. Under the hospitality of the Lin Manor, Chu Qingyan ate quite a bit. Walking was good for digestion and she was happy to enjoy the night scenery with the people beside her. Big Ice Cube, why is Big Brother Lin called a miser? Is it because he's stingy? She couldn't be blamed for thinking this because she couldn't find any other reason to describe him. Xiao Su's lips curved because of her description. Perhaps it's related to his style of doing things. Chu Qingyan walked beside him and seriously listened. Then she heard him talk about Lin Fengyi's past as an official. When Lin Fengyi first entered the official circle, because he was young and talented, he was heavily relied on by the emperor, so many ministers wanted to curry favor with him. A high official wanted to marry his daughter to him and take him in as a son-in-law, but it was a pity that he had to mourn for his deceased mother for 3 years to reject him. That high official's daughter was already 16 years old and would become an old woman in 3 years, so the high official gave up. As Lin Fengyi was promoted step by step, he held more and more power in his hands. Many people wanted to give him gifts to do things for him. There was once when an official's relative committed a crime. Originally, he was only sentenced to 1 year in prison, but because he gave a gift, Lin Fengyi added another sentence to his crime and was sentenced to an additional year. The gift he gave was also used as evidence in court. Many officials and rich businessmen gritted their teeth at him, but they couldn't do anything to him. He was a miser and stingy person. They wanted to drag him down, but there was no way to do so. Moreover, his upright and plain-spoken character was highly valued by the Sichuan emperor. Coupled with his outstanding achievements in politics, he was able to be promoted continuously in just a few years. No one dared to openly frame him. After Chu Qingyan heard about Lin Fengyi's past, she was completely in awe of him. Big Brother Lin is really a clean and honest official who sincerely serves the people. His father used to be a famous official. He should have inherited his father's teachings. Xiao Su agreed. Then his mother passed away when he was in his teens? Chu Qingyan asked sadly. Xiao Su patted her head and smiled. Do you really think that's true? That's just an excuse he casually made up to reject that person. Ah? Isn't it inappropriate to joke about his parents like that? Chu Qingyan was shocked. Xiao Su's eyes flashed and his gaze fell in front of him. He lost both his parents when he was 5. Chu Qingyan frowned slightly. But after his father dealt with a corruption case, he was retaliated against. More than 160 lives were lost in the house. He was hidden in his mother's wardrobe and was the only one who survived. Hidden in his faint words was his pity for his good friend. Chu Qingyan looked up at the person beside her and couldn't help but squeeze her hand into his, using the heat of her palm to warm his cold fingers. So that's why he wants to be an honest and upright official? Consider it as a son fulfilling his father's wish. Xiao Su held her hand tightly, his drooping sleeves covering their connected fingers. When the heavens are about to bestow a great responsibility on a man, they must first torment his will, toil his muscles and bones, starve his skin, empty his body, and disturb his actions. That's why they must be patient and gain what they can't. Chu Qingyan softly recited an ancient saying and then said, Big Ice Cube, if Big Brother Lin's parents knew about this in the underworld, they would be proud of Big Brother Lin. He's really outstanding. Xiao Su knew that she was relieving his depression. Actually, he wasn't that sad, he just felt a little sympathetic. Walking on the bustling streets, his heart was unusually calm. Perhaps it had something to do with the people accompanying him. Big Ice Cube, do you have a dream? Big Brother Lin wants to be a good official who upholds justice for the people. What about you? Chu Qingyan changed the topic and asked seriously. In the past, Big Ice Cube wholeheartedly served the country and the people, for the Sichuan Emperor, for the Liang Empress. However, he put in a lot of hard work and effort, but it wasn't cherished by others. But she felt that it wasn't something he really wanted to do. I didn't before. Xiao Su thought for a moment and replied. Then what about now? Chu Qingyan didn't let him go and continued to ask. Xiao Su looked at her deeply. In the depths of his dark eyes, a light slowly rose and condensed into the appearance of the person in front of him. I have it now. Then what is it? Chu Qingyan was extremely curious and impatiently asked. Xiao Su smiled but didn't say anything. Chu Qingyan saw that he was so tight-lipped and couldn't help but snort coldly. So petty. Then why don't the petty you share your dream? Xiao Su felt that recently he seemed to like seeing her jumping up and down. He couldn't help but want someone to pinch her tender face. I'm not telling you. Chu Qingyan was unwilling to say. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows and didn't force her. In any case, she would take the initiative to say it later. As expected, after walking for a while, Chu Qingyan opened her mouth. I want to be a rice worm. I want to stretch out my hand and open my mouth. I want to sit on a deck chair and bask in the sun. I want to have no worries and be free. I don't have to worry about food and clothing. As soon as her voice fell, a chestnut fell on her forehead. You're too fat and too ugly. Give up on this idea. Xiao Su mercilessly attacked. Chu Qingyan gave up. After walking all the way back to the bank, Chu Qingyan was exhausted. After washing up, she immediately climbed into bed to rest. She didn't know if it was because she dreamed of what she thought of in the day. At night, she had a dream. She dreamed that she had become a fat and ugly rice worm. Then she was despised. In the end, she tried her best to slim down and actually broke out of the cocoon and became a butterfly. The butterfly looked like the kite flying by the shore today. After waking up, Chu Qingyan saw the kite hanging on the windowsill. She just casually mentioned the kite. She didn't expect to receive a kite the next morning. And it was a cat brand kite. Chu Qingyan hugged the simple and honest cat brand kite. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but her heart was more warm and sweet, because she could see that this kite was made for her by the Big Ice Cube at night. Chapter 644. It was not yet 3 in the morning, but many people had already arrived at the training ground. When Chu Qingyan appeared in the morning dew, Jin Xen walked in front of her and reported the current situation of the number of people present. Master, there are 46 people, and 42 people have actually arrived. Chu Qingyan nodded. She was still very satisfied with the results of the second day. When it was time for training, there were still 2 people missing. What's going on? Where are Su 17 and Su 19? Chu Qingyan pointed to the people who were not named on the roster, and then asked everyone. Everyone looked at each other, but no one answered. Everyone was so tired from training yesterday, how could they still have the energy to pay attention to others? At this time, Flowing Light and Green Gourd each slipped over with one person. Before they got close, they could already smell a strong smell of alcohol. Then the 2 people were thrown on the open ground. They were Su 17 and Su 19 who were late. Looking at the 2 drunk people, Chu Qingyan frowned slightly. Young master, these 2 people were picked up at the entrance of the bank. They were already unconscious at the time. After Flowing Light reported, he stood behind Chu Qingyan. Chu Qingyan nodded, then looked up at Jin Ling who was standing in the middle of the crowd. Jin Ling, how do you usually deal with this situation? Jin Ling was already embarrassed when he saw the 2 drunk people. As a fierce cavalry, they did not follow the discipline. However, after being called by the young princess, he hesitated. After all, they were subordinates who had been with him for many years. 50 strokes of the military rod. 50 strokes of the military rod. This military rod was different from the usual cane punishment because it hit the bones instead of the flesh. Although Chu Qingyan felt that this punishment was not enough of a deterrent, since Jin Ling said so, she would do him a favor. Carry out the punishment. Chu Qingyan raised her hand, and someone came out with a wooden rod. The 2 drunk men did not know what happened. Perhaps they were still having a good dream at this time, but when the first rod hit, most of their sleepiness was gone. Ouch! Shrill screams resounded through the courtyard. Chu Qingyan, what right do you have to hit me? After Su 17 wailed, he saw the person standing in front of him as soon as he opened his eyes. He was so embarrassed that he became angry and called her by her name. Both of you left your post without permission and did not follow military discipline. You got drunk and did not return home. You did not even care about your status. Don't you think you should be punished? Chu Qingyan said calmly. She did not care about the looks on their faces. How dare you teach us the fierce cavalry? Not bad. Su 17 echoed. Don't think that you can start a dye shop just because we gave you some color. Who do you think you are? Ma Yan, Su Yi, and the others' faces changed when they heard the 2's words. Especially Jin Ling, who knew Chu Qingyan's identity. At this moment, she really wanted to sew up those 2's mouths. Young princess consort had a special place in master's heart. Offending the young princess consort was equivalent to offending master. Jin Ling could not help but look at the person standing under the tree. At this time, her head was slightly lowered. Her face was covered by her drooping hair. Jin Ling could not see her expression. But because of this, Jin Ling felt even more uncertain. In the whole courtyard, except for the wailing of Su 17 and Su 19 and the sound of the rod hitting meat, there was a dead silence. Although many people were dissatisfied with Chu Qingyan, who took on the responsibility of training them, no one dared to say it so blatantly. Are you thinking that 50 strokes of the military rod is too light a punishment? Chu Qingyan's tone was still flat. No one could tell whether she was happy or angry. Chu Qingyan, if you have the guts, fight with me. Let's see who's better at martial arts. Su 17 glared at Chu Qingyan, as if he wanted to tear her apart. Su 17's fearless words caused Ma Yan to involuntarily tremble. He had seen Chu Yan's martial arts before, and he could not even last a few moves against her. Su 17 was simply courting death. Chu Qingyan crossed her arms and looked at him leisurely. What right do you have to fight with me? Do you really think that some things can be solved by force? Chu Yan, are you afraid? Su 17 was dissatisfied with her attitude. He gritted his teeth and said, Afraid? What's there to be afraid of? You're just not qualified yet. Take this military rod well. When you wake up, if you still want to practice with me, Jin Xin by my side will be happy to accompany you. Chu Qingyan was too lazy to talk to such a drunkard. If you're still not done, I don't mind getting someone to gag you. Su 19 sneered and said, Chu Yen, are you afraid of us? Is that why you always use that little guard as a shield? You're right. Look at you. You're just a weak scholar. You don't look like a man or a woman. You're so weird. How can you beat us strong men? Su 19 sneered and said, That's right. The more he said, the more unpleasant it sounded. If Chu Qingyan was not afraid that they were the subordinates of the ice cube, she would have already kicked them away. Su 17, Su 19, you two shut up and receive your punishment. Jin Ling could not help but say, they were really getting worse and worse. How did he not realize that they had fallen to such a level? Lord Jin Ling, why are you standing beside this coward? Shouldn't you be fighting for us brothers? When did an outsider have the right to criticize the fierce cavalry of Jiangnan? Su 17 looked at the person beside him in disbelief, his tone full of doubt and anger. Jin Ling was angry. Su 17, shut up. The two subordinates were still drunk and spoke without thinking. It was clear that they had offended someone. Jin Ling really hated iron for not becoming steel. He thought of what Hua Ling had said to him yesterday. The Jiangnan fierce cavalry had already become a pile of loose sand. If they were not properly disciplined, they would be crippled. He did not take it to heart at first, but now he began to believe his words. Unfortunately, drunk people did not have any sense of reason. They were accompanied by wailing and chattering. Chu Qingyan sneered and did not speak, while Lu Guang and the others frowned. Jin Ling's forehead was covered in cold sweat. The more these two people talked, the more outrageous they became. When he raised his hand and was about to ask someone to gag their mouths, a sound of footsteps suddenly came. Outsider? Coward? It's really strange to use these two words on this king's people. The voice that was not angry but powerful sounded neither fast nor slow, but it made the people present kneel down involuntarily. The first light of the morning sun shone on the black clothes at the door. The dark lines on the edges of the golden silk meandered under the light. An icy aura quickly spread out in all directions. The people kneeling on the ground did not dare to raise their heads. Only one person looked at him with a smile. Chapter 645. Xiao Su walked into the training grounds. Every time he passed by a Xiao-like cavalry, they would lower their heads even more. Greetings to Master. A uniform voice sounded in the courtyard. Xiao Su did not pay attention to the people kneeling on the ground. He walked in front of Chu Qingyan and asked with a raised brow, I told you to discipline them, but you're being disciplined? Chu Qingyan coughed lightly, not knowing how to answer. She cursed in her heart. If it wasn't for the fact that they were your people, I would have punished them in minutes. How could I allow them to abuse their power? Without Master's orders, no one dared to stand up. But Master was talking to Chu Qingyan as if no one was around, causing Jin Ling, Ma Yan, and the others to lower their heads even more. Hua Ling, Lu Guang, and the others immediately understood. Master was clearly supporting the little princess consort. Xiao Su looked at Jin Ling and the others, who were sticking their tongues out at him and making fun of him. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, but he soon evened out. Under the mask, the expression on his face was slightly stern. He turned to face the others and glanced around the courtyard. This king remembers that among you, the earliest one to join the Xiao-like cavalry was 10 years old. The latest one was 7 years old. The 3 years of close training were all led by this king. The cold voice slowly sounded in the silent courtyard. It was like the sound of a morning bell, every word penetrating their hearts. Do you still remember this king telling you that survival is as cruel as hunting? If you want to be the fastest leopard or the fastest antelope, it's completely up to you. Xiao Su's cold gaze swept across everyone who had their heads lowered. Although his voice was soft, it was powerful. This was the first time she saw the big ice block training his subordinates so seriously. It was as if he only needed to stand there and he was a majestic god, not angry but dignified. Now, what do you all look like? Do you need this king to give you a mirror to let you look at yourselves? Who was Xiao Su? He was the soul of the Xiao cavalry, the ruler, the sacred and inviolable master. They looked up to him, feared him, and worshipped him. Now, this belief in their hearts was asking them word by word, do you still remember the oath, the persistence, and the belief you had back then? One question after another fiercely hit his heart, as if asking himself if he still remembered the him who had worked so hard and refused to admit defeat. No one spoke. Other than guilt, self-blame, and self-reflection, there was nothing to say. I didn't ask you to guard the bank to eat, drink, and play. If that was the case, would I still need you? Everyone could hear the anger in their master's calm voice, and they didn't dare to breathe loudly. At this moment, what they were most afraid of was being abandoned. His master had always been strict. He would rather have elites than to make up the numbers. This king has never given anyone a second chance. If it wasn't for Chu Yen wanting to reawaken your lost hearts, you would have already disappeared from this place. If you don't even want this opportunity, you can just say it. This king doesn't mind removing you from the fierce cavalry. Xiao Su's voice was powerful and calm, as if he was just talking about the weather. But these words had already stirred up an upheaval in everyone's hearts. Removing them was the same as disappearing from the fierce cavalry's list, and not acknowledging your existence. Your past would become a dream, and other than yourself, no one would remember it. Everyone was proud of being a member of the fierce cavalry. Their existence was meaningful because they were a member of the fierce cavalry. If they lost this identity, what was the point of living? Master, we were wrong. Young Master Chu, we were wrong. When Xiao Su's words fell, the Jiangnan fierce cavalry who were kneeling in the courtyard all admitted their mistakes. One by one, they sincerely admitted their mistakes. It was the prosperity and ease of Jiangnan that made them forget their past. And forgetting was the same as betrayal. What their master hated the most was people who lost themselves and betrayed the fierce cavalry. At this time, they were already panicking, but they quickly regained their senses. Chu Qingyan listened to the sincere repentance, and her heart was infected. She turned to look at the person whose back was facing her. There was a type of person who was born to be a king, and people were willing to follow them. With just a few words, it was enough to affect a person's life. And the person in front of her was one of them. And at this time, Xiao Su turned around and looked at the person behind him. Chu Qingyan blinked her eyes, looked at him, and then looked at the people kneeling on the ground. She suddenly understood Big Ice Cube's actions. Big Ice Cube wanted the Jiangnan fierce cavalry to owe her a favor. Her face became hot, and then she coughed a few times before saying, "Your Highness, everyone makes mistakes. Since they already know their mistakes, then give them another chance. Since Chu Qingyan has pleaded for you, then I will let you go this time." Rise. Xiao Su suppressed them with his eyes and raised his hand to let them rise. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone immediately shouted, "Thank you, Master. Thank you, young Master Chu." Chu Qingyan instantly received countless grateful gazes. She couldn't help but lower her eyes, and felt a little embarrassed. This was clearly a trap that their master dug for them, and it had nothing to do with her. After everyone stood in line, Xiao Su turned to Chu Qingyan and said, "Start training." "Thank you, Chu Qingyan." This was the first time Big Ice Cube spoke to her so seriously. She immediately stood up straight and replied, "Yes, Your Highness." Su 17 and Su 19 were dragged away, and there were only 44 people left for training. Master had never been soft-hearted, and this was the first time he agreed to someone's request. Therefore, Chu Qingyan's image in their hearts suddenly rose. Chu Qingyan had already arranged the training tasks, so Lu Guang, Qinghua, and the others directly led the people to start training, and there was no need for Chu Qingyan to intervene at all. At this time, Xiao Su had already turned around and left with his people. Chu Qingyan watched the black figure disappear behind the door, and for some reason, her heartbeat suddenly sped up. She felt that Big Ice Cube was really too cool just now. Chu Qingyan always thought that Big Ice Cube had used this to scare the Jiangnan fierce cavalry. However, not long after, when she chatted with Huoling, she found out that this was not a joke. Young princess, actually you don't know, but you saved the Jiangnan fierce cavalry. When Master first arrived at the bank, he learned that the silver in the warehouse had been swapped, and that the silver borrowed from Xiangyang and Xianying had been stolen twice. Master had already thought of giving up this fierce cavalry, because the fierce cavalry would never make such a low-level mistake, and these people's mental state was extremely poor, and they had already been reduced to ordinary guards. Therefore, Master was prepared to transfer people from other places to replace these people the next day. Unfortunately, young princess's actions were one step faster than Master's. Huoling smiled ambiguously as he said this. If it wasn't for young princess, who would have the ability to save people from Master's hands? Chu Qingyan sighed. Fate really made fools of people. However, it was also because of this that she had gained many loyal followers. However, these were all arranged by Big Ice Cube, otherwise, how could she have such great ability? Chapter 646. Chu Qingyan spent the entire day training with the Jiangnan cavalrymen. During the break, Chu Qingyan and Jin Ling stood under the shade of a tree and chatted casually. Did the two stewards say anything to you when they came back? Chu Qingyan asked casually. Jin Ling took a sip of water and instinctively looked at the person beside him. Young master, what are you referring to? Is it about the restaurant's loan? Anything is fine. Or it could be about my character. Chu Qingyan smiled. Character? Jin Ling recalled that Shi Qing and Li Buqing did not seem to talk about the little princess consort's words and actions yesterday. They only said that everything was going well. Seeing Jin Ling shake his head, Chu Qingyan breathed a sigh of relief and her expression relaxed. She slowly opened her mouth. Jin Ling, these 2 days, I have investigated the whereabouts of more than 10 stewards before the change in the bank and their performance on that day. Other than Shi Qing and Li Buqing, the rest of them do not have the motive, time, or ability to commit the crime. So you are suspecting either Shi Qing or Li Buqing. Jin Ling's tone was obviously displeased. You seem to think that it can't be them? Chu Qingyan had already expected Jin Ling to have such a reaction and could not help but ask. Jin Ling took a deep breath and looked at the blue sky outside the courtyard. His expression was no longer so aggressive. In the past few years, they have been conscientious in their work and rarely make mistakes. They are also very experienced. In the bank, they can be said to be my right-hand men. I have spent a lot of energy on them. Their personalities are completely different, but their personalities can complement each other. I am very assured that many things in the bank will be taken care of by them. So many years have passed, if they had bad intentions, they would have acted long ago. Why wait until now? So you don't believe that one of them can be the mole? Chu Qingyan heard his words and frowned. Jin Ling pursed her lips and didn't say anything, but her expression had already answered Chu Qingyan. I don't think it's wrong to think that way from your perspective. However, Jin Ling, you have to know that people change. They can't resist temptation, and they can't control their hearts. Perhaps this person already had ulterior motives when he first entered the bank. The only reason he didn't show it was because... Just as Chu Qingyan was about to analyze the situation bit by bit, Jin Ling interrupted her impolitely. Young master, there is no proof. Unless you can produce evidence, forgive me for not being convinced. Chu Qingyan wasn't angry at all. She nodded and said, Okay, I'll show you the evidence. Thank you for your understanding, young master. Jin Ling knew that he had gone overboard, but he still couldn't believe that his trusted subordinate would do such a thing. Chu Qingyan waved her hand. She could understand Jin Ling's feelings. Who would be willing to believe that they were pushed by their own people? But no matter what the result was, she wouldn't let the mastermind off so easily. Although she didn't know who the mastermind was, it was obvious that this person wanted to use this series of schemes to cause the bank to fall into financial difficulties, lose its reputation, and then close down. After the training, Chu Qingyan immediately went to look for Xiao Su. The moment she entered the door, she saw him standing in front of the table with a brush in his hand. He was seriously painting on a piece of white paper. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but lighten her steps. Then she leaned against the table and watched him paint. On the paper, there was a lush bamboo forest. This is the bamboo in Brother Lin's residence, right? Chu Qingyan asked after the person beside her put away the brush. Yes. Xiao Su nodded. Seeing that he was about to leave for tea, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but call out to him. Hey, other people will stamp it after they finish painting and write a year's end. Why don't you do it? Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. You said it was other people. I'm not other people. Chu Qingyan choked. When did the big ice block learn how to twist words and force logic? When Xiao Su was pouring tea for himself, Chu Qingyan was already standing behind the table, carefully admiring his painting. Although her painting skills weren't very good, she had at least seen many famous paintings in the past few years. She still had the ability to appreciate paintings. After carefully looking at it, she felt that the big ice block's painting skills were not inferior to those famous painting saints. Big ice block, besides painting flowers and plants, what else have you painted? It seemed that she hadn't seen him paint in the past few years. Even if he had painted a few, it was all about these. What else can I paint? Xiao Su asked back. Yes. She counted with her fingers. For example, buildings, animals, people. Hearing the little fellow's words, Xiao Su played with the teacup with his fingertips, looking thoughtful. Find a place to sit down. Chu Qingyan was a little puzzled when she suddenly heard the big ice block speak, but she still sat down at the tea table obediently. Then she saw him return to the table, put the bamboo forest painting aside, and put a new piece of paper on the table. He picked up the brush, his eyes lingering on her for a moment, and then dipped the brush in ink and began to draw on the rice paper. Chu Qingyan blinked and then realized that the big ice block was drawing a portrait of her. Wow, the surprise came so suddenly. Thinking about it, she felt a little excited. Chu Qingyan's face was warm. She often looked at the big ice block, but being stared at so seriously by him, she felt uncomfortable all over. She felt that it was very awkward to just sit there at this time, so she wanted to find something to talk about to relieve her embarrassment at this time. Big ice block, thank you for today's matter. She racked her brains and remembered that he had helped her solve the problem of Shaolai cavalry in Jiangnan this morning. I just couldn't bear to see you being bullied. Xiao Su replied without raising his head. At this time, he was concentrating on the lines in front of him, so he didn't think much before replying. Chu Qingyan felt warm all over, and there were bubbles of happiness in front of her. But Xiao Su's next words burst those bubbles in an instant. I thought you would teach these stinky boys a lesson, but I didn't expect you to be too soft-hearted. How can I rest assured when you are like this in the future? Xiao Su's tone was stern. Chu Qingyan raised her head and met his sharp eyes, and suddenly she was stunned. I still think these people are your subordinates. If I punish them too much, it will be difficult to explain to you. Since I have handed them over to you, it means that I trust your ability. Overcautious and timid, these 2 points have to change. Xiao Su glanced at her and continued to dip the brush in ink. Chu Qingyan modestly listened to him. After a while, the person in front of him had finished drawing. He put down the brush and admired it with his hands behind his back. Chu Qingyan saw that he looked very satisfied and couldn't help but jump up to take a look. When she saw clearly what was drawn, Chu Qingyan was petrified. Big ice block, are you sure this is me? Is it not? I drew it according to your appearance. Take a closer look. Doesn't this charm resemble you? Chu Qingyan face-bombed. This was clearly a little tabby cat. Although charmingly naive, it was still a cat. How could you tell that it was a human? Chapter 647. The two of them discussed whether the painting looked like her or not for a while. In the end, Xiao Su wanted to take it away and snatch it from her. Although it was a cat, she reluctantly kept it for the sake of Big Ice Cube. After staring at the gray-haired kitten in the painting, Chu Qingyan snorted and put it away. Tell me, why are you looking for me? Xiao Su leaned back on the pear-blossom chair in an elegant posture. He didn't look like he was teasing her at all. If not for his reminder, Chu Qingyan would have forgotten the purpose of her trip here. Here's the thing. I think we can agree to the loan from Linue Restaurant, but we won't really lend it to them. Instead, we should take this opportunity to find out the mastermind behind it. Xiao Su's expression didn't change. Tell me your reason. Chu Qingyan nodded and said, the afternoon before yesterday, I went to Linue Restaurant with Shi Qing and Li Buqing. First, let's talk about the location. Although Linue Restaurant is built near the river, it's in a relatively remote location with no commercial streets nearby. If you want to do upper-class business, it's reasonable to say that the environment is quiet. However, there are 2 or 3 coffin shops near the restaurant. This location is a bit unreasonable. Continue. Xiao Su supported his chin and said with interest. As if encouraged by his words, her originally unconfident heart suddenly sank. She said loudly, then, we met Mr. Fong of the restaurant. He looked shifty, was good at calculation, and spoke with a glib tongue. Of course, many businessmen are like this. However, when I showed a sloppy look, he took advantage of the situation and arranged for a singer to serve me. After probing me, he bribed me. Maybe this is normal. How can he achieve the purpose of the loan? It's very suspicious to do this, but the food in his restaurant is really not to my taste. If they really do this business, no matter how precious the ingredients are, not many people will be willing to support them. Xiao Su frowned halfway. So the rouge on your body was left by that singer, Peony? Big brother, aren't you focusing on the wrong thing? Chu Qingyan nodded her head absent-mindedly and continued to narrate her findings. Lastly, I specially observed the waiters in the restaurant and discovered that there were thin calluses on their palms. It's obvious that they all know martial arts, and their footsteps are light. It seems like their martial arts are not low. Then your conclusion? Xiao Su had pieced together the truth from her description, but he still wanted to hear her thoughts. So I don't think this restaurant is going to operate for a long time at all. From the boss to the staff, everyone is suspicious. So I think this loan is very likely that someone wants to gain something without risking anything. It's just like the last time someone deposited money into the bank, but in the end, they switched the money and stole the money. It has the same effect. She had analyzed this matter countless times in her mind. She always felt that this was a trap. And this time, if the bank was cheated again, then the name of the Su clan bank would be implicated because of this, and then it would lead to the worst ending. Why did you only say this today? Is it because you already have suspicions about the spy? Xiao Su looked at her without blinking. Chu Qingyan felt that he was simply too smart. Just based on what she said, he guessed it. Yes, I guess the spy is between Shi Qing and Li Buqing, but there is no evidence yet. Reason? Xiao Su calmly waited for her to analyze. From what she said just now, she was already able to independently take charge of things. He didn't need to be like in the past, always watching her side. Her mind was clear, organized, not blindly confident. Her thoughts were meticulous, and she had evidence. This was what it should be like to do big things. Xiao Su felt that after a few years of growth, she was already able to take charge of things on her own. These 2 people didn't stop me when I was tempted by beauty and expensive gifts. If they were afraid of my identity and didn't dare to do it on the surface, it would make sense. But after that, they didn't mention it to Jean Ling. If they were loyal to Jean Ling and the bank, they had no reason to hide it. Moreover, they were obliged to tell Jean Ling that I was in cahoots with the restaurant owner. But they didn't say anything, which made me feel very strange. In addition, I ruled out all the possible suspects in the past 2 days. Except for the 2 of them who were in their own rooms at the time of the crime, no one could prove that they were not there, and the keys were kept by the 2 of them. So these 2 people are the most suspicious. Chu Qingyan slowly expressed her suspicions and doubts. At this time, she continued to add, I have asked Hualing to secretly send people to investigate the origin of the restaurant owner to see if he is really innocent. If his family background is not clean, then Shi Qing and Li Buqing are the most suspicious, because they were the ones who provided the information to Jean Ling, so now we have to wait for the results of Hualing's investigation to determine whether it is true or not. Xiao Su asked. No, we can take the initiative to attack. She shook her head and smiled slyly. You've already planned it all out? Xiao Su looked at the light that flashed on her little face, and his eyes were also dyed with a bit of light as he asked with a smile. This little fellow would always bring him a surprise every time, and it seemed that this time would be no exception. Chu Qingyan nodded proudly and showed her little white teeth with a sinister smile. Let's beat them at their own game. Okay, we'll do as you say. Xiao Su agreed. Big ice block, aren't you worried that I will mess it up? She asked in surprise. Although she was very confident in her plan, the big ice block didn't even listen to her and supported her. This was not in line with his usual style of doing things. If you mess it up, I will help you clean up the mess. But it's best if you succeed in one fell swoop and don't let everyone down. This will be beneficial for you to develop your business in Jiangnan in the future. Xiao Su was still very tolerant of her. Although he always hoped that she could take on heavy responsibilities, she was still the person he cared about the most. He could be harsh on his subordinates, but he couldn't bear to let her suffer any grievances. On the road to growth, he could watch her endure the pain, but he must be behind her. No matter when she was tired, he could come over and lean on her at any time. With the big ice block's words, her confidence was instantly bursting. Then if I succeed, what reward will you give me? She was just like what Su 17 said, the kind of person who would open a dye house if given a little color. At this time, she climbed up the pole and asked with a smile. You're really smart. He laughed. Didn't I solve the problem of the bank for you? She retorted with dissatisfaction. You say it as if the bank doesn't belong to you. Xiao Su's tone seemed to be a little bit innocent. She was speechless. Okay, what do you want? Can you draw me a picture? Didn't I just draw you a picture? What I want is a human, not a cat. Chapter 648. As evening approached, Jin Ling sat at the head of the table in the meeting hall. Shi Qing and Li Buqing were on his left, and Chu Qingyan was on his right. Young Master Chu, how's the investigation of the restaurant? Jin Ling coughed softly and asked. Chu Qingyan crossed her legs and slumped on the chair as if she had no bones. She did not have any proper sitting posture. It's very good. The food in that restaurant can be said to be the best I've ever eaten. The owner is very hospitable, and the decoration of the entire restaurant is just right. If it's a business for the upper class, I think it will be very profitable. Chu Qingyan spared no effort in praising the restaurant, and her legs were swaying non-stop. Jin Ling's eyes twitched when he saw the little princess's behavior. If not for his master's order to fully cooperate with the little princess's plan, he would have given in. Actually, Chu Qingyan could not act like a playboy. However, seeing Jin Ling trying so hard to control herself, she felt that it was rather amusing. Young Master Chu, do you think we can lend out the money? Jin Ling asked modestly. Chu Qingyan glanced at Shi Qing and Li Buqing discreetly and nodded. I think it's possible. Since Mr. Fong has prepared everything, we need to act quickly. Before the news spreads, we should immediately sign the contract with the other party. Otherwise, the interest of 10,000 per month will be snatched away by others. Caretaker Shi, Caretaker Li, what do you think? Jin Ling turned to ask the two caretakers beside him. Shi Qing stood up and replied, Young Master Chu's words are reasonable. Since there are no problems, we can do this business. Li Buqing also stood up and replied, Our bank has suffered a lot of losses recently. If the business with Mr. Fong is successful, we can more or less make up for the losses. Buqing agrees with young Master Chu and Caretaker Shi. Jin Ling nodded. After thinking for a while, he said, But now we have a problem. Although we have 100,000 taels of silver in the warehouse, to ensure daily expenses, we need to borrow money from other places. So, at this point, Jin Ling said to Li Buqing, Caretaker Shi, tell Mr. Fong to sign the contract in 2 days. The money will be sent to him within half a month. Okay, University of Jin Ling, Shi Qing replied. Then which bank are we going to borrow money from? Li Buqing asked. Jin Lingning pondered. Xiangyang and Xianyang have already been seconded. Now that they're facing a crisis of credibility, I don't plan to borrow from them this time. So I've decided to use Fuyang. Today, I will write a letter to the bank in Film. If there is no problem, we can send our people to escort the money in 2 days. The three of them nodded. After Shi Qing and Li Buqing left, Jin Ling looked at the person who had resumed his sitting posture in confusion. Young master, why do you need to borrow money from Fuyang? Our bank still has the money. Chu Qingyan waved her hand. This is just a touchstone, and it will be of great use in the future. You will soon understand what I'm doing. For now, the secrets of heaven cannot be revealed. Looking at the little princess's mysterious appearance, Jin Ling suddenly felt uncertain. It was not because she doubted her plan, but because she suddenly did not have confidence in her subordinates. This kind of feeling was somewhat terrible. University of Jin Ling, don't forget about the training later. Chu Qingyan stood up and raised her eyebrows at him with a smile. She seemed to be taking pleasure in his misfortune. Jin Ling almost slid off his chair. The training in the past 2 days was already comparable to the training in the past 2 months. It was not that he was slacking off, but because there were too many things to do in the bank, he could not leave. But recently, with the little princess's presence, he was able to share a lot of the burden. That was why he could breathe a sigh of relief. But now, he did not relax much. Instead, he had the heavy responsibility of training. Even Hua Ling laughed at him today because his white and chubby face was tanned and thin. So Jin Ling watched as his little princess leisurely left. He wanted to cry but had no tears. Ever since the little princess came, his eyes were dizzy, his waist was sore, his legs were sore, and his appetite had increased. Was this a good thing or a good thing? Chu Qingyan walked out of the conference hall. Jin Xian was already standing behind her. Send people to keep a close eye on Shi Qing and Li Buqing. I think that the real mole will make a move in the next 2 days. Chu Qingyan ordered in a low voice. Jin Xian nodded and accepted the order. Seeing that the sun was gradually setting, and the wind was starting to get a little chilly, Chu Qingyan tightened her clothes. Although she had already made her preparations, her expression was not relaxed. Jinshin, who do you think is the mastermind behind all of this? Could it be a competitor of the bank? Jin Xian guessed when he heard this. I don't think so. It seems like there is a force that wants to use the bank to deplete your highness' source of income. Chu Qingyan faintly felt that this was not a business war because she had not heard of any movements from the bank recently. So, Jin Xian's guess could be eliminated. Please forgive me for being slow-witted, I can't guess. Jin Xian said, somewhat distressed. Chu Qingyan shook her head, I can't guess either. Perhaps we will only know when the results are out. I hope everything goes well. This matter was not so simple. She just hoped that it did not involve the fight for the throne. Otherwise, everything would become more chaotic and Big Ice would once again fall into the vortex. It will definitely go well. Jin Xian said firmly. Chu Qingyan smiled and slowly walked towards Big Ice's courtyard. Jin Xian, do you miss Shining? I miss Dad and Mom. I wonder if they are doing well? His Highness should have made arrangements for old Master Chu and old Madam Chu. You don't have to worry. Night training. Because the Jiangnan Fierce Cavalry did not complete the mission within the stipulated time, everyone was punished to do handstands in the courtyard. 2 hours. The time starts now. Flowing Light shouted. The punishment began. After calculating the accounts for the entire afternoon, Jin Ling felt a little dizzy. Now that he was doing handstands to improve blood circulation, he could also use his brain. At this time, he remembered the conversation with the young princess today and began to ponder the real purpose of the secondment. At this time, a black shadow suddenly appeared in front of him. He came back to his senses, but with this vision, he could only see the corner of a dress. Yes, it was a girl. Jin Ling, I have a question for you. What is it? Hearing the voice, Jin Ling frowned and replied. It was the young princess's maid, Yang Xiaohuan. Perhaps it was not convenient to talk like this. Yang Xiaohuan squatted down. She was about to speak when she seemed to have seen something terrifying and her expression changed. Seeing Yang Xiaohuan's expression, Jin Ling muttered in his heart. Although he had disguised himself, he was still a handsome middle-aged uncle. Why was she so frightened by him? What's wrong? Jean Ling said unhappily. Jean Ling, your beard fell off. Oh my God, I can't let the young princess see this. Master told me not to tell anyone about my disguise. What should I do? Chapter 649. Jean Ling looked down at the beard that was half sticking to his face and half fluttering in the wind. He wanted to cry but had no tears. Seeing Jean Ling's expression, Yang Xiaohuan was a little confused. Was it too painful? So she asked with concern, Jean do you need Xiaohuan's help? Don't move, block it, don't let the young master see it. Jean Ling immediately exclaimed when he saw her move. Oh. Yang Xiaohuan obediently turned her body. Jean Ling sighed in relief. Xiaohuan, help me see what the young master is doing now. Yang Xiaohuan obediently turned her head and saw her master sitting under the tree reading the account book seriously. Under the light of the fire, her master was even more handsome than a man. Okay, Xiaohuan, help me stick my beard back and pay attention to the young master's movements. Jean Ling felt that this was the only way at this time. Yang Xiaohuan was frightened by his serious appearance and immediately reached out to help him stick his beard back. After a long time, the beard was still sticking to his face and flying in the wind. What should I do? I can't stick it back. Yang Xiaohuan wanted to cry but had no tears. Jean Ling felt that it was simply a case of misfortune. Master is looking over, he's walking over. Yang Xiaohuan subconsciously turned to look at her master. Perhaps her gaze was too obvious and was caught by her master, who put down the account book and walked towards them. It's over. The little princess consort said that during the training period, they were not allowed to leave suddenly unless they had something to do. Otherwise, it would be regarded as leaving early. But how could he ask her for leave in his current state? Got it. Jean Ling saw the handkerchief in Xiaohuan's hand and had an idea. Chu Qingyan walked over at this time and was somewhat puzzled. Xiaohuan, why are you here? This servant has a question that I don't understand, so I came to ask Jean de, Yang Xiaohuan answered truthfully. It's already late. If you have any questions, leave them for tomorrow. Don't tire yourself out. She saw Xiaohuan's efforts and Chu Qingyan felt that her doting on her was not in vain. Yang Xiaohuan's tone was filled with gratitude. It was really a blessing from her previous life to be able to meet such a considerate master. Chu Qingyan nodded and was about to turn and leave when she caught a glimpse of something that was not very harmonious. Jean Ling, why are you covering your face? Chu Qingyan lowered her head to look at Jean Ling's half-masked face in amusement. She felt that he was acting a little strange. Yang Xiaohuan widened her eyes in shock. Jean Ling, on the other hand, had already thought of a countermeasure. He replied calmly, Young master, your subordinate is, because his face has a disease that can't be exposed to light. Yang Xiaohuan interrupted him and blurted out. Jean Ling. Chu Qingyan blinked. An illness that can't be exposed? How miraculous. I'll get Ethereal to study this disease next time. After saying that, Chu Qingyan suspiciously looked at the two of them and then left with his hands behind his back. Jean Ling heaved a heavy sigh. Yang Xiaohuan's stupidity really made her want to cry. He wanted to use his allergy as an excuse to deceive her. How could he have known that she would come up with such a ridiculous reason? The young princess consort must be suspicious. I was scared to death. Master almost found out. Yang Xiaohuan took a deep breath. But then she felt that something was wrong. Why do I have to lie to master with you? Jean Ling felt Yang Xiaohuan's resentful gaze and was speechless. I'm really worried about your intelligence. He realized that the words that Hua Ling always said were very appropriate here. Yang Xiaohuan was about to cry. She must have been influenced by Jean Ling and thought that something big had happened. Her brain was not able to react and that was why she lied to master with him. No. I have to tell master the truth. Yang Xiaohuan turned to run. She couldn't run. She lowered her head and found that her foot was grabbed by a hand. She remembered the ghost stories that were spread among the people and her face turned pale with fright. A ghost. She lifted her foot and stomped down forcefully. Jean Ling, who was not on guard, was heavily injured. In the end, young Xiaohuan did not succeed in telling her master the truth. Jin Ling successfully concealed the truth, but he raised his pen within 7 days. Master, when can this subordinate show my real face? The disguise medicine that Ethereal gave me seems to have lost its effect. Today my eyebrows fell out, yesterday my beard fell out. Recently, this subordinate is like a mouse seeing a cat when I see the little princess. I wish I could hide myself. In the study, Jin Ling complained bitterly. Xiao Su expressed his great sympathy for his subordinate. You've worked hard. Jin Ling was overwhelmed by the favor and replied, It's not hard, it's not hard. Bear with it a little longer. Xiao Su patted his shoulder. Jin Ling thought that his master meant that he would be able to see the light of day again after a few more days, so he happily went back. Little did he know that after a few days, there were several new bottles of disguise medicine in his room, and there was even a letter. Jin Ling, Master said that you've used up all the medicine and told me to send more. These are enough for you to use for 20 years. Take care. After 20 years, you won't need to disguise yourself anymore. Ethereal's letter. Jin Ling's eyes twitched. After 20 years, of course he wouldn't need to disguise himself anymore because he would already be a real uncle. Master, this subordinate didn't want medicine. This subordinate isn't so ugly that even the heavens can't tolerate it. Why don't you let this subordinate show his true face? Heavens. Later he bravely asked this question. Master, do you dislike me because I'm ugly and an eyesore? He asked tactfully. He only heard his master look up at him and then leisurely ask him back. Compared to this prince's appearance, what do you think? Jin Ling's tears were about to fall out. Was there even a need to ask? Whoever compared their appearance with his master was seeking death. This subordinate understands. Jin Ling left the courtyard and bumped into Hua Ling. Hua Ling, do you think I'm ugly? So ugly. I'm sorting out the information, go play at the side. Jin Ling left heartbroken. It turned out that he really was ugly. In the past, everyone praised him to comfort him, afraid that he would take things too hard. As a result, the handsome young man began to doubt his own appearance. After Hua Ling finished sorting out the things in his hands, he couldn't help but frown. Did Jin Ling come to find him just now? What kind of question did he ask? Why couldn't he remember? Oh heavens. During the day, Chu Qingyan went to Xiao Su's place for a stroll and then brought up the matter that had been bothering her for several days. Big Ice Cube, I've noticed that Jin Ling's mood hasn't been right these past few days. Did he fall out of love? No, he should already be married at his age. Could it be a family dispute? Chu Qingyan irresponsibly guessed. Xiao Su narrowed his eyes. He is married. Recently, his family has been quite noisy, you don't need to pay attention to it. He's thin-skinned and can't handle other people asking about it. Just pretend that you don't know. Chu Qingyan deeply agreed. You can't pry into other people's privacy, I understand. Thus, Jin Ling discovered that he had been strangely married. He was clearly a pure and innocent young man. Master, can you not be like this? Oh heavens! Chapter 650. It was late at night and everything was asleep. At this time, on this dark and windy night, a window was quietly opened in the darkness. A figure peeked out and carefully looked around. Seeing that there was no one around, he put down the thing he was holding in his hands. A carrier pigeon left his hands and flew out. When the carrier pigeon disappeared, a smug smile appeared on the man's face and he quickly closed the window. Everything happened so fast that it seemed like it had never happened. But this scene had already been seen by the people who had been monitoring the yard. Chu Qingyan put on a coat and brought people to Xiao Su's room. Big ice block. Everything is as I expected. When Chu Qingyan came in, she handed him the small bamboo tube she had just received. Xiao Su took it and opened the letter to take a look. The plan is going well, Fu Yang will be transferred. In just 8 short words, it explained everything. Who is it? Xiao Su's eyes darkened. Shi Qing. Chu Qingyan never thought that this simple and honest-looking person would be the spy in the bank. You really couldn't judge a book by its cover, and it was hard to tell what was in a person's heart. Xiao Su handed the letter back to her. He sat down in the chair and asked, "What are you planning to do now?" "Don't alert the enemy first. Then we'll follow this clue to find the mastermind." Chu Qingyan stuffed the letter into the small bamboo tube. Jean Xen came forward with the carrier pigeon and then put the small bamboo tube back. Big ice block. Is there any way to track the carrier pigeon? This was the reason why she had come to find him tonight. Give it to Hualing. Xiao Su understood what she wanted to do and nodded with praise. Hualing came forward and took the carrier pigeon from Jean Xian's hands. Then he explained, "Little princess, our fierce cavalry has raised a group of carrier bees. As long as we sprinkle special pollen on the pigeon, the carrier bees will be able to follow the scent. Moreover, they are faster than the carrier pigeon, so they won't get lost." Chu Qingyan sighed again at the wisdom of the ancients. "Okay, I'll leave it to you. I hope you can find the culprit through this method." Chu Qingyan had high hopes. Hualing nodded and brought the carrier pigeon down. Seeing that there was nothing else, Jean Xen also retreated, leaving the room for the two of them to be alone. "Big Ice Cube, do you know where the pigeons are heading?" Chu Qingyan stood in front of him with a serious expression. Seeing her serious tone, Xiao Su couldn't help but narrow his eyes. "The capital." Xiao Su was silent. Chu Qingyan's eyes flashed with worry. "Big Ice Cube, do you still remember the assassination attempt on the fourth prince? I have a feeling that the person manipulating all of this in Jiangnan has a similar feeling to the person who set up the trap. Are you suspecting that these two incidents were done by the same person?" Chu Qingyan was troubled. "I'm not sure, but I just have this feeling. Don't worry, everything will come to light eventually." He knew what she was worried about, but other than comforting her, he didn't know what else to say. Actually, even if she didn't mention it, he already had a guess in his heart. It was just that he found it hard to believe that this incident was done by him. Chu Qingyan sighed softly and turned to look at the person in front of her. "Big Ice Cube, I don't understand. Is it really a pleasure to be in power? Since ancient times, how many people, for the sake of power and status, killed their fathers, killed their brothers, and poisoned tigers to eat their cubs? There was no end to their schemes." But she really didn't understand. Was it really a pleasure to be in a high position and control life and death? When Xiao Su heard this, he calmly said, "Do you know what the 6 desires of the 7 emotions and 6 desires in Buddhism refer to? Greed, anger, stupidity, love, hate, and evil desires?" She seriously thought about it before answering. "Then, do you know why greed is the most important thing in the world?" Xiao Su paused but didn't let her answer. Instead, he answered his own question. "Because human greed is endless. All the 6 desires originate from greed. It's because one wants to get more that they fall into such desires." Chu Qingyan was slightly surprised. She thought that only Su Jian would understand these Buddhist principles, but she didn't expect that Big Ice Cube would be involved in them as well. "I understand now. Blindly wanting to get more, but never being satisfied." She deeply agreed, but then she said, "But to me, I don't like that kind of life. It's easy to lose yourself in blind pursuit. I don't yearn for a life where thousands of people worship me. Moreover, it's lonely at the top." Xiao Su smiled slightly and raised his hand to caress her head. He teased, "If everyone thought like you, the world would be peaceful." Actually, Big Ice Cube, there is such a country in this world. Chu Qingyan felt that the current atmosphere made her want to confide in him. "Tell me about it." He knew that she liked to read some miscellaneous travel notes, so he wasn't surprised that she had such an idea. Her expression became gentle, and the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. "There's a country that advocates democracy and equality. The officials are not high and mighty, and the people are not lowly. The officials are the servants of the people, and their duty is to serve the people. Women are not the accessories of men. Monogamy. If the husband has an affair with someone other than his wife, it's considered disloyalty to the marriage, and he will be condemned by morality." Xiao Su listened seriously and felt that it was inconceivable. Also, there is no such thing as a royal family. The highest ruler is elected by votes. Relatively speaking, it is fair, just, and open. Moreover, there is no inheritance system. Everything is obtained by one's own strength. In that country, the fate of poverty can be changed. You can rely on hard work to learn, or you can rely on yourself to start a business. At this point, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but laugh. Someone once described our current life like this. Communication is basically by shouting, security is basically by dogs, and transportation is basically by walking. That country's environment is different from our current one. It's more convenient and faster. Xiao Su listened quietly. He vaguely felt that the little fellow's words were tinged with faint nostalgia. You've been to that country? Chu Qingyan was stunned. She had not only been there, she had lived there for 20 years. Unfortunately, she could only shake her head and say insincerely, I saw it in books. Xiao Su withdrew his hand that was caressing her and said softly, Qing, in this world, there is one thing that cannot be changed, and that is identity. I am the Prince of Sichuan, so I am destined to have a difficult life. I may encounter more dangers in the future. I hope that you can be strong. I will keep you safe, but sometimes you still have to rely on yourself. In fact, there was a way to keep her safe for the rest of her life, and that was to keep her far away from him. However, he couldn't do it. Therefore, he could only selfishly keep her, selfishly watch her struggle in the past few years, undergo the harshest training, and selfishly teach her all the complicated affairs of Jiangnan, just to let her grow quickly. Chu Qingyan nodded heavily. She could feel the infinite disappointment in the big ice block's words. She couldn't help but reach out and wrap her arms around his neck, and put her head on his shoulder. Big ice block, I will be with you, unless you don't want me. Silly, how can I not want you? You have to remember this, otherwise I will tell people in the future that the King of England of Sichuan doesn't keep his word. Okay. Chapter 651. The night passed by just like that. When Chu Qingyan woke up, she found that she was back in her room. She rubbed her temples. In her memory, she seemed to be discussing important matters with the big ice cube. How did she get back here? Master, do you want breakfast? Yang Xiaohuan walked in with a steaming hot meal. What time is it now? Chu Qingyan climbed out of bed and looked out the window at the first glimmer of dawn. It will be 3/4 of an hour. Yang Xiaohuan replied as she arranged her chopsticks. After Chu Qingyan finished washing up, she sat down at the table. Yang Xiaohuan stood at the side with a plate in her arms. She seemed to have something to say, but she hesitated. Did you run into trouble? Chu Qingyan knew that she was often ostracized in the accounts room, but Xiaohuan had never mentioned it to her. Since she wanted to solve it herself, Chu Qingyan felt that this was a chance for her to grow up. Thus, she did not interfere and waited for her to ask for help. It's not considered trouble. It's just that when this servant was calculating some of the accounts, I found a problem. I don't know if this servant made a mistake, but this servant has already calculated it several times. Yang Xiaohuan said with a conflicted expression. Xiao Su's eyes lit up when he heard this. I remember that these 2 days, you were looking at the accounts under Shi Qing and Li Buqing. It's about the income and expenditure of the bank in recent years. Is there a problem with their accounts? Yang Xiaohuan nodded. Okay, tell me in detail. Chu Qingyan felt that if the mastermind behind the scenes had planted someone, it would not have been so simple as to wait until this year. It should have already been involved in the bank's business. It was just that she had not been able to find out, so she focused on the accounts. She did not expect that Xiaohuan would give her such a big surprise today. Yang Xiaohuan immediately spoke tirelessly. Chu Qingyan's expression darkened as she listened to the end. She put down the bowl in her hand heavily. I didn't expect that there would be such a parasite in the bank. Master, what should we do now? Yang Xiaohuan asked nervously. In the past few days, she had already developed feelings for the native bank. At this moment, she was also extremely worried. Chu Qingyan calmly ordered, don't leak any information. First, sort out the remaining accounts and see how much money has been embezzled. Yang Xiaohuan nodded immediately. Chu Qingyan narrowed her eyes, deep in thought. Such a person had been placed in the bank for so many years to achieve such a goal. Sure enough, the person behind this was a good move. Hopefully, they would be able to uproot it this time. Big Ice Cube Bank's business was not only to earn money, but also to hide from the public. If it was destroyed, it would not be as simple as losing money. Therefore, no matter what, she had to help Big Ice Cube protect the bank. Morning exercises continued as usual. After a few days of training, the Jiangnan Fierce Cavalry's mental state had greatly improved, or it could be said that they had completely changed. And their discipline had also returned to its original state in the past 2 days. Chu Qingyan looked at these valiant men, who seemed to have an endless supply of energy, and felt very gratified. In truth, to be able to become a fierce cavalry after so many selections, they definitely had their own strengths. Whether it was martial arts or skills, in the past few years in Jiangnan, they were like pearls covered in dust, losing their original splendor. Now that Chu Qingyan had arrived, it was like a hurricane, washing away the dust on their bodies and awakening them once again. When everyone was resting, Chu Qingyan suddenly clapped her hands, attracting everyone's attention. I have been paying attention to everyone's training in the past few days. Chu Qingyan looked at everyone who had gathered, her gaze calm as she spoke clearly. From the very beginning, my goal was not to improve your martial arts or increase your skills, but to sharpen your minds. I wanted you to get rid of your bad habits and get rid of the bad habits that you have been infected with in the past few years, so that you can regain the spirit that a valiant cavalry should have. When Chu Qingyan said till here, everyone revealed a look of surprise. I know, among all of you, there should be many who have thought about it. Why is it that although you are all fierce cavalry, there are some who can follow your master to protect him, to be sent out to do missions or to gather information, but you can only stay in Jiangnan and do nothing, as if you have lost the responsibility that a fierce cavalry should have? When these words came out, many people slowly lowered their heads, because their thoughts had been seen through. Chu Qingyan's tone turned gentle as she said, "But you all know that a horse carriage is like a horse carriage. Not only does it need a horse carriage, it also needs wheels, and it also needs a base plate. If any part is missing, it would not be a horse carriage. The Xiao cavalry is the same. All of you are indispensable. It's just that everyone has different responsibilities. You have to remember, do simple things repeatedly, and do repetitive things seriously. Then no matter where you are, you will be able to live up to your status. You have always been heroes and not cowards." It had been a long time since someone had said such words to them. The Jiangnan Fierce Cavalry looked at the thin, scholarly-looking youth in front of them, and an inexplicable warmth surged in their hearts. On the first day, when I saw all of you, I actually did not have confidence in my heart, and did not know if I could call all of you back. Today, I am very glad that your spirit is still there, and has not been destroyed by the comfort of Jiangnan. From today onwards, I will not supervise your training, but there is one thing: I hope that you can consciously and spontaneously complete your daily training. When these words came out, Chu Qingyan paused, and then asked seriously, "Can you do it?" Everyone said emotionally, "Even if it is just a floor, can you do it to the best of your ability?" "Yes." The reply to Chu Qingyan was a voice that was even more resolute than the one before. At first, they all thought that Chu Qingyan was just teasing them, and that was why she was so cruel to them. But after training for a day or two, they found that the empty and lost feeling from before no longer appeared. Instead, it was replaced by the feeling of training with their brothers, and their whole body was suddenly filled with spirit. This feeling was really familiar yet strange, and it had been a long time since they had last seen it. It turned out that this youth was really doing it for their own good. Looking at the new faces of the people, Chu Qingyan was very happy. Her mood seemed to be affected by them, and her voice became louder. "From today onwards, you will reclaim your responsibilities," and then, she dragged out the last word. Everyone saw that the person who was speaking seriously just now suddenly had a sly expression, and they could not help but feel a slight chill down their backs. "I have a task for all of you, and it is very important." Chapter 652. Young Master Chu, just tell us what mission you have. We promise you that we'll definitely complete it. Su Yi shouted from the crowd. That's right, that's right. Tell us. The crowd echoed. Chu Qingyan saw that everyone was rubbing their hands together in anticipation, and she was very satisfied. She cleared her throat and raised her hand to signal for everyone to quiet down. Do you still remember the 2 robberies in Xiangyang and Xianyang? She threw out this sentence first. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone fell silent, and then a clamor rose one after another. How can we not remember? It's our humiliation. We didn't expect them to snatch it away. It's so embarrassing. If we have another chance, we won't let them leave so easily. Sensing everyone's anger, Chu Qingyan nodded slightly and asked everyone to quiet down again. They were no longer as indifferent or angry as they had been before. All right, if I tell you that there's a chance for you to escort the silver again, are you confident that you can safely escort it back to the bank? Everyone replied in unison without hesitation. Very good. Chu Qingyan smiled. The crowd started to feel doubtful. Young Master Chu, is what you said true? Someone asked. Once he said that, everyone's eyes immediately focused on Chu Qingyan, their hearts filled with hope. The 2 robberies were the most humiliating incidents in their lives. Although they didn't say it out loud, they were still angry. If there was a chance, those robbers wouldn't be able to get away with it with their current abilities. It's true. We'll set off tomorrow. We're going to Fuyang. According to reliable sources, those robbers will appear again. Chu Qingyan gave an affirmative answer. They actually dare to come again. We've always wanted to avenge our humiliation. Chu Qingyan cleared her throat and the crowd quieted down. She then said slowly, however, I have a condition if you want to participate in this mission. You have to pass a test. No matter what the result is, you have to keep this mission a secret. The crowd didn't become less excited. Instead, they became more excited. Tell me what kind of test? Gather at Mount Qingyuan tonight. All right. Everyone immediately agreed. Soon, only Chu Qingyan, Jin Ling, and a few others were left on the training ground. Young Master, this subordinate wishes to thank you. Jin Ling walked in front of her, her voice filled with gratitude. Thank me for what? Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows, somewhat puzzled. Jin Ling smiled. If it weren't for your arrival and training, this subordinate wouldn't have been able to see Xiao Lai Qi. For so many years, this subordinate has been immersed in the bank and other businesses, and did not pay much attention to their changes. A few days ago, your words made this subordinate understand that this group of Xiao Lai cavalry has quietly changed in this subordinate's hands. If not for your timely intervention, this subordinate is afraid that this subordinate would have let Master down. Chu Qingyan shook her head. Actually, I only played a supporting role. They still had to rely on themselves. Everyone in the Xiao Lai cavalry is a good seedling. It's just that everyone has times when they are lost. If they get lost, it's fine as long as they can walk back. And it's still too early for you to thank me. When the answer is revealed tonight, you will see how ferocious a lion can be when it wakes up. Jin Ling smiled in understanding. Thank you for your auspicious words, young master. Chu Qingyan waved her hand and changed the topic. You should already know about the matter of the carrier pigeons. What are your thoughts now? Hearing that, Jin Ling's eyes dimmed. This subordinate didn't think that I would raise a tiger to become a calamity. When this matter is resolved, this subordinate will personally look for Master to receive punishment. Jin Ling, you don't have to blame yourself now. This is not all your fault. It's just that sometimes, the people we trust will betray our trust. Just keep your eyes open in the future. Chu Qingyan reached out and patted him on the shoulder, consoling him. Jin Ling was moved by her words, but in the next moment, it was broken by her words. That's right, didn't you catch the illness of not being able to see the light? You've recovered, right? I haven't seen you cover your face these past few days. Chu Qingyan's words were filled with a teasing tone. Jin Ling coughed softly before fleeing for its life. AI, what kind of student did he take in? This young Xiaohuan had caused him to die. Chu Qingyan looked at his figure and smiled slyly. Don't think that she was easy to fool. She also had a pair of fiery eyes. All right? The weather today was really good. Let's go and accompany Big Ice Cube to finish eating. I heard Hualing say that you've reignited the dormant flames in the hearts of Jiangnan's fierce cavalry? At the dining table, Chu Qingyan almost choked when she heard Xiao Su's words. She gulped down a mouthful of soup before swallowing the rice. She glared at him with resentment. Hualing, what kind of description is this? It's not that exaggerated. I just washed them clean of their previous glory and rejuvenated them. Xiao Su smiled. Washed clean of their previous glory? Only she would dare to use this word. Nun, your performance is worthy of recognition. Xiao Su seemed like he was comforting a little child as he praised her with a smile. Of course. In front of Big Ice Cube, she did not have the humble appearance she had in front of Jin Ling. Only in front of the people she cared about would she willfully reveal her true self. Xiao Su only smiled without saying a word. Chu Qingyan, who was eating, suddenly thought of something. She blinked and immediately put down her bowl. Then, she began to add more vegetables to her bowl. Big Ice Cube, this pork rib is sweet but not greasy. Try it. Also, this sweet and sour fish is sweet and sour. It's appetizing. Try it too. Slowly, his bowl was filled to the brim. Xiao Su raised his brows, trying to curry favor for no reason. Did you do something wrong again? Chu Qingyan's forehead was covered in black lines when she heard this. What do you mean by something wrong again? Do I look like that kind of person? Xiao Su was deeply suspicious. Chu Qingyan surrendered. Actually, it's like this. I intend to let Su Yi and the rest take over the mission that Fu Yang has seconded. You're not worried? Xiao Su asked. Hearing his doubts, she was not happy. No matter what, they are still subordinates that you once brought up. You should have confidence in your own people. I have confidence in you. Xiao Su's words had a hidden meaning. She blushed, knowing that he was referring to her own people. She coughed lightly and returned to the topic. Anyway, I've already said my words. This mission will be handed over to them. You're not allowed to go back on your words. I realize that you're quite protective of your own people. Xiao Su could not help but tease. Chu Qingyan harumphed. Although they were all brought up by you, but these few days, we've cultivated feelings for each other. Moreover, they will pick themselves up from where they fell. This is also a rebuilding of their self-confidence. Don't you think it's quite good? What you said makes sense. Xiao Su nodded. Upon hearing this, Chu Qingyan picked up a piece of fish and placed it in his bowl, smiling as she said, Since you think so too, how about I be the leader this time? Chapter 653. So she had said so much because she was waiting for him here. Xiao Su sometimes felt that this little fellow was really becoming more and more shrewd. Did I agree to let Su Yi and the rest carry out this mission? Xiao Su returned to the first topic. Chu Qingyan was successfully choked. So you've decided on the leader too early. Xiao Su bluntly smashed her wishful thinking. You don't agree to this, you don't agree to that, what exactly do you want to do? Humph, don't tell me you want us to have a fight and whoever wins will be in charge. Chu Qingyan felt as though she had been played by him and couldn't help but put down her chopsticks, looking as though she was about to fight. But Xiao Su's cold gaze swept over and she immediately put down her sleeves, picked up her chopsticks and buried her head in eating. As she ate, she was speechless and tearful. Had she been spending too much time with Su Yi and the rest recently, so she kept talking about picking a fight. It's not that I can't agree to it, but I have a condition. Hearing the first half of the sentence, before she could be happy, the second half came crashing over. Chu Qingyan suddenly understood how Su Yi, Ma Yan and the rest felt in the afternoon. It was simply retribution. What condition? She replied weakly. I will be there for your competition tonight. Xiao Su put down his bowl and looked into her eyes. Chu Qingyan was slightly surprised. You want to be the judge? Can't I? He asked back. Chu Qingyan touched her nose. I didn't say that I can't, but I want to mourn for them first. Xiao Su's expression turned serious because of her words. Qingyan, you must know that there is no wishful thinking in any mission. It's not enough to give it your all, you must have enough ability to undertake the corresponding mission. This is not only to ensure that the mission is completed successfully, but also to ensure that they can return safely. The world is so cruel. If you don't be cruel to yourself first, then once on the battlefield, the enemy will be cruel to you. It had been a long time since she heard Big Ice Cube say such things to her so seriously. She pursed her lips and felt that he was right. This world was really so cruel. She nodded heavily. I understand. Seeing that she understood, his expression softened. He reached out to stroke her head and said softly, I'm not forcing you to do anything. I just want you to understand some things so that you won't fall in the future. Sometimes, being strict is more useful than being pampered. Yes. Her eyes curved into crescents as she smiled. However, as she thought of something, the smile in her eyes disappeared. Big Ice Cube, have you always treated yourself so harshly? Xiao Su smiled faintly. His tone was a little erratic. If you want to reach a certain height, you have to put in a certain amount of effort. This is very fair. His words made her feel a little distressed. Everyone only saw the Big Ice Cube's glamorous background and status, but no one knew how much hardship he had suffered behind the scenes. Tell me, what was the most difficult thing you encountered back then? She felt that although some things were already in the past, perhaps the pain in her heart would lessen a little if she spoke about it. Actually, after you experience it, you won't find it difficult when you think about it. He didn't think that there was anything to talk about in the past. He wasn't the kind of person who liked to complain. However, when he saw the little fellow's serious expression, his heart softened. He picked out an incident from his memory. I think there was a winter day when I was wearing a single layer of clothing. The master urged me to carry water in the yard. He had to fill 10 large water tanks. Carrying water in the winter? It was very easy to soak the clothes. Chu Qingyan exclaimed, How old were you at that time? When I was 6 or 7 years old. I don't remember clearly when I first started practicing martial arts. Seeing the little fellow's slightly moist eyes, Xiao Su suddenly regretted mentioning this to her. Chu Qingyan suddenly stood up. To his surprise, she put her hand on his head and stroked it like he usually did. It's all in the past. Fortunately, it's all in the past. She couldn't scold his master for being too harsh and doing such a thing to such a young ice cube, because she knew that the harem was a place that ate people without spitting out the bones. It was not easy for him to survive. If it weren't for his master's teaching, he wouldn't have become the big ice cube he was today. Although it had been many years and had become a thing of the past, she still felt sad for the 6 or 7-year-old ice cube. Xiao Su didn't know whether to laugh or cry at her actions. It was the first time that someone had done such a thing to him in such a way to comfort a child. However, after smiling, he felt more satisfied in his heart. At that time, no one could hug him with warmth. More than 10 years later, he was compensated. It was God's kindness. He pulled down her hand. His eyes were a little dull, as if he was lost in his memories. I remember Master once said that you don't know how strong a person's willpower is. Only when you grit your teeth and pass the hurdle that you feel you can't pass, the rest is nothing. Chu Qingyan nodded in deep agreement. Big Ice Cube, so when you threw me to Lu Guang and the others, it was to let me break through myself? It's true if you say so, and it's also not true if you say no. He hoped that she had enough ability to protect herself, but he didn't want her to suffer the hardships that he had endured. He couldn't bear it for her. Then let's wait and see. I feel that Jiangnan's fierce cavalry won't let you down. Chu Qingyan smiled. Night fell. Qingyuan Mountain. Everyone had already gathered. The night wind echoed in the valley, wave after wave. Everyone was silent, holding their breaths as they waited. Tonight, they were very surprised that their master had appeared behind Chu Yen. Chu Qingyan glanced at the people beside her, the corners of her mouth slightly raised. Actually, Big Ice Cube's appearance was a kind of encouragement for Su Yi, Ma Yen, and the others, proving that they hadn't been abandoned. She turned her head and looked at everyone. She cleared her throat before speaking. Tonight's mission is very simple. I have a box in my hand, and inside it is an important treasure. I need you to escort it from the foot of the mountain to the top of the opposite mountain before sunrise. However, there will be layers of obstacles in the middle. You only have one chance, so you can only succeed and not fail." After she finished speaking, she raised her hand, and Lu Guang passed the box to her. She weighed the slightly heavy box in her hand, then passed it to Su Yi. "Now you can go down the mountain." Su Yi and the others didn't say much. One by one, they walked to the edge of the cliff and jumped down. Chu Qingyan stood in the wind and watched the dozens of black dots disappear into the smoke. She couldn't help but confide to the people beside her, "The first time I went to the top of the cliff, I was forced to jump down by Lu Guang. At that time, I was complaining in my heart. Why is this training so abnormal? Why do I keep meeting such abnormal people? Later, when I needed to use it, I realized that thousands of days of training can be used in one moment." Xiao Su turned his head and looked at the little fellow whose eyes were shining. A faint smile appeared in his eyes. Chapter 654. It didn't take long for the competition to begin. Su Yi and the others were divided into 4 teams. More than 10 people surrounded one person and quickly climbed the mountain from the north, south, east, and west in order to distract the enemy and disperse their forces. Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su were also standing at the foot of the mountain and listening to the reports from their subordinates. They were aware of their movements at all times. Hua Ling and Turin had already arranged people to cover the entire cliff. At this time, they were chasing after the 4 teams and delaying their progress. Xiao Lai Chi was a top expert. They were good at fighting, using poison, and playing tricks. So when they reached the halfway point of the mountain, everyone was already locked in a fierce battle. Every time Su Yi and the others took a step forward, someone would come out to stop them. The fishing nets and ropes that were prepared in advance were immediately thrown at them. Every step was very difficult, but fortunately, everyone cooperated well. Although they were trapped, they quickly got out of the trap. Catch! Su Yi was entangled by 3 or 4 people, so he made a prompt decision and immediately threw the box he was carrying to Su Shiba. After Su Shiba caught it, he was soon entangled by a swarm of people. Su Yi and the others secretly cursed. Why were there so many opponents? Thus, a great battle of throwing objects took place between the cliffs. Time passed bit by bit. Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su stood at the top of the mountain with Jin Ling, Hua Ling, and the others, watching the crowd fight. Big ice block. I think only the battle between the strong can be so fierce. Chu Qingyan watched without blinking. She never knew that in such a dangerous and steep environment, people could still fight to this extent. It really made her sigh in admiration. "Young master, that's because you don't know what kind of inhumane torture we suffered when we were training under master. That's why we have today's ability." Hua Ling whispered in the young princess's ear. He lowered his voice as much as possible for fear that his master would hear it. "A strict teacher produces a fine student. A strict teacher produces a fine student." Chu Qingyan rubbed her nose. It seemed that Xiao Lai Chi's training at that time was still considered humane. She decided to take back the words she had ridiculed them in her heart. Towards the end, the mountain wind became colder and colder. Chu Qingyan felt as though she was about to be blown away by the howling winds. Unfortunately, the foot of the mountain was completely bare, and there was nothing at all. There wasn't even a tree that could shield her from the wind. What kind of place had she chosen? At this moment, a source of heat approached her. Then, warmth surrounded her. Before she could even raise her head, she was wrapped tightly in a cloak. "You should sleep for a while. The results won't come out so soon." "I know best what kind of strength they have." A familiar, indifferent voice came from above her head, but it was mixed in with the whistling cold wind, giving people a kind of gentle illusion. The cold air on his body was immediately dispelled, and his nose was filled with the fragrance of ink. He didn't need to listen to the voice, just the smell alone was enough to know who this person was. "Why is your body so warm?" Chu Qingyan felt that the temperature of his body was completely different from that of her own body. She couldn't help asking with a bit of envy. As soon as her voice fell, There was a slight vibration from his chest beside her ear. A voice filled with laughter sounded out. Did you forget that you can use your internal strength to protect yourself from the cold? She actually forgot such an important thing. No wonder Hualing and the others were standing in the wind with a relaxed expression. It seemed like she was the most foolish one. So she was looked down upon by this big ice cube again. But later on, she found that as long as she left this big ice cube and moved by herself, she would be as strong as a man. In front of him, she was all kinds of relaxed and silly. In the end, Yen Luo gave her an explanation. Because in front of the person she cared about, she would feel a sense of dependence and naturally let down her guard. Go to sleep. Xiao Su did not plan on discouraging her anymore. He gathered his cloak and wrapped her inside, preventing the mountain wind from blowing in. Then what about you? She leaned on him and asked. Don't worry about me. He gently patted her back and ended the conversation between the two of them with a single sentence. Chu Qingyan was not sleepy at first, but now that her entire body was wrapped in warmth and the ink lingered on her nose, it had a calming effect. She gradually felt her eyelids become heavy. In order to avoid falling down when she fell asleep, she didn't think too much as she reached out her hand to wrap around his waist and her entire body leaned against him. It was rare for this big ice cube to take the initiative to provide such a large heater, so wouldn't she be letting herself down if she didn't properly enjoy it? The person in his embrace suddenly came close and that strange softness was pressed against his hard chest. There was a strange electric current that came from where the two of them touched and then flowed through his body. What was unexpected was that he didn't reject it, rather there was an indescribable desire. This kind of feeling didn't seem unfamiliar. In his mind, there were some scenes that suddenly flashed through. Their lips touching, the strange fragrance lingering on the tip of his nose, their skin touching. There was an inexplicable heat that began to flow through his body. He instantly stopped the scene in his mind and at the same time his brows tightly knit together. Why were there these things in his memory? Although he couldn't clearly see who was intimate with him, that kind of feeling seemed to have really happened. The person in his embrace moved and Xiao Su couldn't help but close his eyes, forcing the undercurrent in his body back down. Finally, he slowly opened his eyes, but there was an unclear expression in his eyes. Chu Qingyan, who didn't know that Xiao Su had already recalled the scene in the inn, was already in a half-asleep state. She felt that the touch under her hand was very comfortable, as if she was lying in a vast grassland. It was very comfortable. Baby Chu, what kind of boy do you like? Tell me, I'll see if there's anyone in our class or department that fits. When the time comes, I'll be the matchmaker. Her roommate chattered in her ear. She didn't want to fall in love so early. She wanted to dedicate her energy to the work of the student council. However, she couldn't stand the repeated bombardment of her roommate, so Chu Qingyan finally seriously thought about this question. My criteria for choosing a partner is very simple. He cannot be handsome or rich, but he must have a sense of responsibility, patience, ambition, tolerance, and treat my parents the same as his own parents. My papa is such a person. When she answered this question seriously, she was laughed at by her roommate. Your father is indeed a middle-aged handsome uncle. He's a perfect husband and father. Unfortunately, there aren't many people like him. You can stop thinking about it. However, she discontentedly retorted, I've only met one person. He always has the heart of the people and always patiently teaches me things. He has never been harsh to me, and he tolerates all my strengths and weaknesses. He doesn't care about other women, but he treats me differently. He spoils me and gives in to me. Why haven't I seen such a person before? You're not making it up, are you? Her roommate looked at her suspiciously as if she hadn't woken up yet. At this time, Xiao Su had already diverted his attention to the top of the opposite mountain. It seemed that he had already gotten the result. When he was about to wake up the person in his arms, he heard her whisper, It's my big ice cube. I'll show him to you when I have time. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.